How's going, guys? Welcome to the channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto got caught between two worlds, built his massive harem. Huge shout out to marshalanime for this story. If you wants to see awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. It had been more than an hour since the sun sank over the horizon as the elderly Kage sat at his desk overlooking a few documents. In his earlier years he would always glare at the few sheets of paper left on his desk at the end of the day. They simply meant another few minutes each sheet that he'd be stuck in his office instead of home with his family. But time changes things, and over the years those who'd greet him at the door have passed on one by one. Now it was a bit of a relief to see a few extra documents tossed on his desk, as it would give him something to distract his wandering mind. Not to say he didn't have people he liked to see, but given his position he could usually write of a visit as part of his duties. Speaking of which, one such person made a surprise visit of his own, making his presence known with the creak of the door opening. Glancing up, Hiruzen let a gentle smile spread across his lips as he saw that familiar tuft of blonde hair enter the room. "Is something on your mind?" Hiruzen asked the boy. It was odd that he would come to his office. In fact, it was the first time he ever recalled seeing the boy here. Then there was the melancholy look the boy had, a look that pained the old man so. He knew the boy lived a tough life. In a village of hundreds, he lived completely isolated and unwanted save for the aging Hokage and his academy instructor, Irika. He understood the loneliness and sadness that the boy must feel daily, but to see it plainly written on the boy's face was a sight the man never wished to see. Lifting his eyes from the floor, Naruto gave a small, if not hollow, smile. "Can we talk for a while?" And so, for the next couple of hours Hiruzen spent his time with the boy, brewing tea for them and moving over to the sofa set up along one of the walls. Hiruzen could tell there was something the boy wanted desperately to say but couldn't for one reason or another. Though eventually the boy mentioned what one of the instructors had told him after his failed graduation. Now why would Mizuki say that? Hiruzen said aloud with a quizzical expression. He already had several guesses, of course, none of which painted the man in a good light. While learning a jutsu from that scroll would be a sign of your potential, there's a reason those jutsu are sealed away. "I'm sorry, Naruto, but there's no way I can let you see it," Hiruzen regretfully told the boy. "That's fine. I probably know one or two of them already anyway," Naruto remarked before taking a sip of tea. "Come again?" Hiruzen replied without hesitation. Surely that was one of his jokes. Who would teach someone his age such jutsu? Before the old man could say more, Naruto continued with a soft voice. "My clone just finished up with Irika-sensei. So, I probably don't have a whole lot of time left. You know how he is whenever I get in trouble. He must be freaking out right now." As he finished, the blonde reached into his pocket to pull out a thick bundle of papers. "Naruto, what's this?" the Kage questioned as he took the offered bundle. At this point worry was written all over his face. "It's a bit sloppy, sorry. I didn't really know how best to write it, but..." Naruto started before trailing off, small tears welling up in his eyes as he looked at the man he'd happily call a grandfather. It was like a knife plunging into his chest. "Naruto, my boy, whatever is troubling you?" Hiruzen started as he reached out for the boy, only for said boy to throw himself into his chest and wrap his arms around the man. With a few muttered thank yous escaping the blonde's mouth, Hiruzen returned the embrace. The man swore to himself in that moment that he needed to do better. However, it was also in that moment that the man witnessed the boy's body start to light up. If he had to compare it to something, it would be like watching fireflies all gathered in one spot with flashes of light dancing in the darkness. Time seemed slow as the man watched the light intensify, and in response to the intensity the boy's body became translucent. What felt like an eternity probably only lasted a few seconds before the light, along with the boy, finally vanished. He was gone. AU world. Quiet. The Hokage's office was silent as Naruto sat alone, wiping a few tears from his eyes. With his eyes cleared up, the blonde took his hands and gave his cheeks a few hard slaps, and then jumped up to his feet. "Come on! You've made up your mind, no turning back now," Naruto told himself before puffing out his chest. Walking out of the tower, Naruto made a beeline through the illuminated streets towards a small residential district. Once there, he walked up to one of the small two-story buildings, took out a set of keys, and let himself in. The next morning, Naruto woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside his window. The sun was low in the sky as it shone over the land. With a yawn, Naruto sat up in bed and rubbed the sleep from his eyes. Dragging himself out of bed, he grabbed a change of clothes and made his way to the bathroom. While in the shower, he could hear the door open. "Naruto? When did you come in? I didn't hear anything." A man's voice came from the other side of the curtain. "Last night. You and Mom were asleep, and I didn't want to wake you," Naruto replied as he lathered his hair. "Must have been pretty late. Kushina feel asleep on the couch waiting for you to walk through the door," Minato mentioned with a slight chuckle, remembering his drowsy wife trying and failing to stay awake. "Ah, sorry. I had to take care of some things first," Naruto told him. "Out celebrating, I see," the older blonde remarked with a smirk, as he looked himself over in the mirror. "Actually, I failed the graduation exam." "I see," Minato replied as his smirk vanished. He knew how important it was to Naruto to pass and had hoped that for his sake that he'd pass, despite his own feelings on the matter. To hear otherwise was disheartening. "So how long will you be staying this time?" the man asked, hoping to change the subject. "Actually, I was hoping to stay here, permanently," Naruto admitted, and Minato's eyes lit up. "Of course. You're welcome to stay as long as you wish," Minato exclaimed, elated, before quickly reined himself in. "But are you sure about this? You've always been adamant about living over there." "I'm sure. This is what I want," the blonde reaffirmed. "Wonderful. I'll let Kushina know. She'll be so happy." And with that, the man left to inform his wife with a skip in his pace. That's right, he was an outsider who decided to make this world his home. He noticed it when he was 5, though he'd probably been doing it his whole life. It was an innate power within him that, when built up to a certain point, would pass him back and forth between two different worlds. These two worlds seemed to share the same history, more or less. It was only during the time of the Second Great War that things differed from what they could piece together. Some people who died in one world were alive and well in another, for example. Obviously, this would lead to changes, and with each passing generations the two worlds drifted further apart. It was on one particular day when Naruto first realized that something was off. "And just who do you think you are, Blondie?" some girl he never met before demanded from him as he stood between her and another girl on the verge of tears. They both seemed to be his age, more or less. The one shouting had dark blue hair and a princess cut, perfectly named to match her grandeur-than-thou attitude. Her pale violet eyes seemed like they were looking down on anyone in their sight. Meanwhile, the sniffling girl on the ground behind him had short platinum blonde hair with several loose bangs covering up one of her teal eyes. "Who do you think you are?" Naruto shot back with a pointed finger. "You can't just go around yelling at people till they cry. What's wrong with you?" the blonde roared heatedly. The sheer fact that Naruto didn't recognize her seemed to genuinely shock the little girl, and flustered she blurted out, "You jerk. I am Hinata Hyuga, heir to the prestigious Hyuga clan." After a moment of silence, and the blonde blankly stared at her, Hinata, who'd begun to steam with a red face, turned on her heel and took off. "I was only trying to help, idiot," she shouted as she disappeared into the distance. "What a weird girl," the blonde thought. After a moment, "Oh right." Naruto spun around. "Are you all right?" Naruto asked while reaching out a hand. His smile faltered a little, and he jolted his hand back when he saw the girl reflexively scoot away from him. Not one to stay discouraged, he went to try again. "What are you doing to Ino?" A new voice entered the scene, along with a pair of small feet slamming into the blonde boy's face. This led to him falling backward and smacking the back of his off the hard playground, with his assailant landing on his exposed stomach after losing her momentum. "Ah! Sakura, wait! He was just helping!" Ino frantically called out to her pink-haired friend as she sat up, now straddling the boy she attacked. "Wha?" Blinking at her friend, Sakura stared with a gobsmacked look before the words hit. "Oh my God!" the little girl shouted as she did her best to jump off the blonde. When she turned to inspect the damage she'd done to the innocent kid, a look of horror crossed both her and Ino's faces when they saw him out cold with blood coming from the bridge of his nose. Though it was really just a small cut. "I am sorry!" The girl ended up shouting into the heavens as she cradled him in her arms with tears of her own forming in the corner of her eyes. When Naruto woke up, he found himself staring at an unfamiliar ceiling with a soft blanket draped over his body. "Finally awake, I see." Yet another voice drew his attention as he turned his head to see a woman with short blonde hair with a large single bang that fell between her green eyes sitting in a chair across the room. Apparently, this was her living room and he'd been sleeping on her couch. "Sakura! Ino! Your little friend's awake." The woman raised a hand up to the side of her mouth and called out. Shortly after, the sound of footsteps quickly approached the room before two girls finally rushed in. Before he could even properly sit up, Naruto found a handful of flowers being shoved into his face. "I'm sorry for kicking you," the pinkett blurted out with her eyes squeezed shut. Tentatively reaching up to part the flowers being offered to him, Naruto couldn't think of a single thing to say. This was all just too weird to him, and why was she apologizing? No one ever apologized to him. Looking from the pinkett, who seemed frozen to the spot, seeming to be waiting for a response before she even dares open her eyes, to the blonde girl from before he could see her shy away from his gaze. Glancing to the side, Ino brought up a hand to scratch at her cheek. They're carnations. They're supposed to be good for apologies. Not at all what he was wondering, but it explained the flowers he guessed. An awkward silence was quickly starting to form when a jovial voice thankfully cut through it. "You should have seen our faces when our little girl dragged you in through the front door. To think my Sakura would be brining boys home already. Gahahaha." Following the voice was a man with dark pink hair shaped like a cherry blossom with sideburns that made a sharp angle into a mustache. "Is now really the time for your jokes? The boy was out cold for an hour." The man's assumed wife responded in clear irritation. Though it was obvious from their expressions that the kids had no idea there was supposed to be a joke in there. Now, Mabuki," the man began with a tut-tut motion of his hand. "We patched the boy right up, so there's nothing to worry about. No harm, no fouls, as they say." Kizashi Mabuki heaved a sigh as she pinched the bridge of her nose. "Could you try to take this seriously?" she asked. "Come now. You know how kids are, they get bruised and banged up all the time. I'm sure by this time tomorrow they'll be the best of friends," Kizashi said with confidence. "Friends?" The word reverberated through the blonde's head as the two girls got swept into the adults back and forth. His chest swelled with hope for a moment. It was something he'd only ever dreamt of, and now the possibility was being thrown around so casually. But no. Something wasn't right. This was all wrong. Why were they being so nice? People would ignore him and pull their kids away when he was around. None of it made any sense. Blurting out some excuse or another, Naruto jumped out from under the blanket and took off. He didn't register what they said, he just made a beeline for the closest door and ran. Then he continued to run, and run, and run. He ran until he hadn't the stamina to continue. Exhausted and out of breath, Naruto stumbled over to the closest wall, let his back fall into it, and slid down till he sat on the ground. As his breathing slowly calmed down, Naruto took the time to watch the people walking by on the street. Why, was all he could think. Their eyes weren't cold and distant like they've always been. In fact, there were plenty that looked worried. Were they worried about him? Why? Because he looked so ragged and out of breath with a bandage covering his nose. They'd never cared before, so why now? "You're not looking so good. What's your name?" A man's voice reached his ears, the first of the concerned onlookers who'd come over to check on him. Looking up, Naruto took in his appearance. A shinobi, if the vest and headband meant what he thought. Though the headband was unique in that it had additional cloth that covered up his left eye. He had short black hair, and despite how scared up the right side of his face was, he had a very approachable air to him. "That's a pretty flower you've got there," the man told him as he knelt to be closer to eye level. "Flower?" Glancing down at his left hand, Naruto saw what the man was talking about. It would look like he'd grabbed one of the flowers in his rush to get out Sakura's house. Ino, was it? She'd called it a carnation, didn't she? Not one for conversation, huh? The man responded to Naruto's silence. Though the boy wasn't silent for long, or rather his stomach wasn't. Hungry, are you? The man said with a chuckle. I am not. Naruto blurted out with flushed cheeks. Though another grumble from his stomach said otherwise. Patting his pocket, the man told him, I've got enough money laying around for the both of us. So how about it, want to keep Big Brother Obito company? Everything was weird, but it wasn't a bad kind of weird, Naruto decided. So, deciding to just go with the flow, the young boy accepted Obito's offer. Taking the outstretched hand, Naruto was helped up to his feet before being led off. Naruto. HM? The man responded as he glanced down at the boy clutching his hand. My name. It's Naruto Uzumaki Tabeo. The boy happily cheered with a big grin. In that moment, unnoticed by the boy, Obito's expression stiffened for just a second. That sounds like a wonderful name, the man told the boy. When the two of them came to a stop, they were outside a small shop with the sign above declaring it as Ichiraku's Ramen. Not that Naruto could read it. With a big stride, Obito led the boy inside as he pushed the short curtain aside with his free arm. I hope you've got something ready, old man, 'cause we're starving, Obito loudly declared once he saw the ramen chief standing behind the counter. Well, haven't seen your face in a while. I was starting to worry that you'd forgotten about us. Tucci joked with his frequent customer. They've been running me rage lately. It's just one mission after another, Obito said as he helped Naruto onto one of the stools. That's what happens when you become a big shot, Mr. Phantom Shinobi, the chief said as he grabbed menus for the two of them. And who might this be? Surely, he's not yours. You'd never be able to keep your mouth shut if Rin were pregnant, Tucci remarked as his focus shifted towards the blonde, ignoring the fact that Obito just about fell out of his seat at the comment. Hey now! That's not something to joke about, the shinobi blurted out. Though he was ignored in favor of Naruto's introduction. Naruto Uzumaki, the blonde proudly declared as he took the offered menu. Name's Tucci Ichiraku, and this is my daughter, Tucci replied as he pointed his thumb over towards a brunette standing on a step stool and stirring a large pot of ramen. I am. Nice to meet you. The girl, maybe twice his age, happily finished for her father as she looked over her shoulder at the blonde boy. Yeah, the blonde happily said. It didn't take long for Obito to realize that Naruto couldn't read, what with him squinting his eyes at the piece of cardboard in his hand repeatedly. So, he'd ordered 2 different flavors and offered Naruto the one he thought tasted better. From there they enjoyed a relaxed conversation with each other and the stand owners. It was just small talk until, hey, aren't the faces on the mountain weird? Naruto voiced his confusion after taking notice of the stone faces through a slit in the curtains. Weird how? Obito asked as he too glanced over at the cliff face. They seem normal to me. It's the 4th one, isn't the hair all wrong? It's supposed to be all spiky, the blonde said as while running his fingers through his hair as though to make his spiky hair even spikier. At this the other 3 in the stand all turned to Naruto with questioning looks. Lord Dan has always had long straight hair for as long as I can remember, Tucci said with a curt nod. Dan? The boy responded. That's the 4th Hokage's name. Everyone knows that. I am answered this time. Oh. So, he'd the guy who died protecting the village, Naruto asserted as though coming to a great revelation. To be fair, he doesn't know the name of any Hokage, even the kind old man who visits him from time to time. This nearly sent the others into an uproar. Dead? What are you talking about? I saw him just the other day. What would make you think such a thing? Now it was time for Naruto to be confused and agitated. But everyone knows that the 4th Hokage gave his life to save the village when the Nine Tails attacked. Naruto huffed. I think someone's pulling your leg, Tucci said with a scowl and crossed arms. He was internally fuming that someone would teach such a young and impressionable child such a lie. Yeah, the village has never been attacked by whatever this Nine Tails thing is, I am added. The old man wouldn't lie to me like that, the blonde retorted in an irritated tone and an admittedly adorable glare. Now, let's all calm down, Obito interjected with a nervous grin. Why don't we just go back to enjoying our meal, Kay? But we can talk about it later. Obito cut the boy off immediately, resulting in the blonde pouting but ultimately giving in. He was furious that they accused the old man of lying, but he also couldn't risk his free food. Things settled back down after that, and they soon finished their food and left just as cheerful as when they'd arrived. It's getting kind of late. Want me to walk you home? Obito suggested as the two of them walked down the street together, as the sun drew closer and closer to the horizon. It wasn't until he felt a tug on his arm that Obito realized the boy had stopped in response to his question. When he turned to see what was up, he felt a twinge of pain in his chest. The blonde was just standing there with a pained look in his eyes, just staring at the carnation he'd been carrying around for a while. No words weren't needed. Obito saw everything he needed in those broken eyes. Without any more hesitation, the man asked a question that would brighten up the boy's day. Do you want to stay with me? See you later. Naruto called out as he left the house. With renewed vigor in his step, the blonde was soon racing through the streets. As he went around the village, there were plenty of people who recognized him and greeted him with warm smiles. Unlike in his world, his father never became Hokage, but his actions in the last war were the same, so he's seen as a hero regardless, making him the son of a hero. The praise could get to be a little too much sometimes if he was honest, but it was better than the alternative. With his first stop of the day fast approaching, Naruto put on the brakes as he called out to the girl in front of the store. Morning, Ino. This girl, wearing a purple jacket and dark pants, looked up at the sudden mention of her name and gave the blonde a sweat smile. Good morning, Naruto. She responded as she watered the flowers outside her parents' shop. Some people were more different than others in this world. Ino here was an example of the more drastic of the changes. The Ino in his world was loud, confident, and confrontational, while this Ino was soft-spoken, timid, and shied away from fights. Are you feeling well today? I don't mind taking a break if you want to sit down for a while. Ino offered as she set the watering can down next to the potted plants. Right, his sickness. There had to be an excuse for why no one had ever seen him before the age of 5, or why he'd disappear for days at a time. Claiming he had an illness was the easiest option. It was easier to pass off since Kushina really was pregnant with him at one point, but there were complications with the pregnancy. It's not an easy topic for them to talk about. No need to worry about me, Ino. I feel fine today, Naruto told her as he patted his right shoulder while rotating his right arm. That's good. Ino gentle cheered as she clasped her hands together. For as long as Naruto could remember, Ino had been this sweat girl who'd look out for him when she could. In fact, her and Sakura were two of his first friends. Boy, was Kakashi proud when he called that. So, what do you have in stock? Naruto asked the girl as he looked over the flowers, still glistening with fresh water. Looking for the usual? Ino asked with a nod from the boy, answering. That will be just a moment, she happily said as she led Naruto into the store. A quick exchange and goodbyes later, and Naruto was on his way with a small bouquet of flowers. I just need to drop these off, then pay Sensei a visit, were Naruto's thoughts when a familiar bark stopped him. Looking down at his feet, he saw a white dog with brown patches on his floppy ears. Hey Akamaru, how have you been? Naruto asked the little guy as he knelt down to pet him. We could ask you the same. How long has it been since you've seen the sun? The pup's partner butted in as he caught up to Akamaru. Glancing up, the first thing that caught the blonde's eyes were the bag of pet food and big metal pen resting under the boy's arm. Seeing this, Kiba decided to answer the unasked question. There's been an increase in the number of strays gathering at the park. Since I've got the day off, I figured I'd head over there and give them a nice meal to chow down on. Need help with that? Naruto asked as he stood up. You sure? It looks like you already have plans. Kiba responded as he tilted his head toward the bouquet. It's fine. I'm not on a schedule or anything, Naruto told him, eliciting a sigh from the other boy. Ah man, if I knew you'd be helping out, I would have brought another bag with me. Kiba lamented as he pressed the bottom of his palm against his forehead. That's fine. We'll just stop by a shop on the way there, Naruto said with a pat on Kiba's shoulder. I'm not made of money, you know. Kiba immediately shot back as Naruto started to take off down the street. You can pay me back later, was the blonde's reply. "Ugh, fine. But don't expect it any time soon, you got it?" Kiba shouted back as he and Akamaru raced after the blonde. Once all the bowls had been filled and spread out in a small clearing next to the stone-laid path, Naruto, Kiba, and Akamaru found a spot on a nearby hill to lay down on and watch their work play out. "A job well done!" Kiba happily congratulated himself, with Akamaru adding in a bark of his own. "Yeah, it feels nice," Naruto said as he watched some of the local cats and dogs gather around the offered food. "Hey Naruto?" Kiba interrupted the calm that had washed over the area. "Yeah? I've been meaning to ask for a while now, but just what do you plan to do?" the tattooed-faced boy asked. "What do you mean?" Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. "You've never attended classes at the academy 'cause you're always sick, yeah?" Kiba summarized, and Naruto responded with a nod. "But you're still super strong, so I'm sure they'd make you a genin like the rest of us if you asked." Oh well. He'd always intended to become a shinobi back in his world. He'd never seriously considered it here, but maybe. "Looks like you guys found a pretty good spot. Mind if we join?" Naruto already knew who that voice belonged to. Sure enough, Shikamaru and Choji were standing at the top of the hill when he craned his neck back to see. "Find a spot and sit down. The more the merrier," Kiba told the pair, his previous question going unanswered as the pair came down to them. With that, the group of friends sat around enjoying one another's company. Memories like this, they're what pushed Naruto to his recent decision. After a while of cloud watching and chatting, the strays had finished off most of the food and headed off for who knows where. Things were nice and calm when Naruto. A shout came from over the hill. "Looks like your girlfriend's here," Choji remarked with a smirk. "She's not mine," Naruto was attempting to refute as he sat up when the Hyuga princess came jumping over the top of the hill, Byakugan active. Landing on her knees, the girl slid down the hill toward her target, wrapping her arms around the boy's shoulders as she slammed into his back. "Found you," the girl happily said before her momentum sent them both tumbling down the hill. Fortunately, Naruto had the right of mind to toss his flowers to one of the boys, so no need to worry about that. "Troublesome," Shikamaru muttered, with his focus staying on the sky above. Meanwhile, the other two were getting a chuckle out of their buddy's dilemma. "Gah! Hinata!" Naruto squirmed in the girl's hold as she rubbed her cheek into his shoulder blade. This was yet another example of the more noticeable differences. The Hinata in this world was, rough to say the least. Overconfident, rash, and hot-headed could all be used to describe her. She refused to be ignored and always took charge, even if she really shouldn't sometimes. Whereas the other Hinata was, well, to put it bluntly, he often wondered if he only noticed her because he knew this Hinata. "Does the couple need some alone time?" Kiba heckled from the sideline. "Can it, Kiba? I don't need to," making Naruto uncomfortable. Hinata shot back, letting the blonde go in the process. "Yeah, 'cause I'm the one making him uncomfortable," Kiba muttered under his breath while Naruto stood up and brushed himself off. "You say something?" Hinata questioned from her spot at the bottom of the hill. "Nope," was the boy's quick reply as he averted his gaze. Looking up into the sky as he made his way up the hill again, Naruto noticed how high the sun had risen. "Has it been late long already?" Reaching down, Naruto picked up the bouquet Choji had been guarding. "See ya guys later," Naruto said to the guys as he turned to head back down the hill. "Thanks for the help." "See ya, Naruto. Later." 3 of the 4 friends gathered said their goodbyes as the blonde walked off. The 4th friend, however, "Where are we going?" This wasn't a surprise. Hinata had always had a habit of sticking to his side like this ever since they'd become friends. "The Memorial Stone," Naruto answered her question. "Oh, I see," Hinata replied with a little less enthusiasm. Naruto had been making occasional visits throughout the years. He didn't personally know any of the names written on the stone. Not really. Though there were a few names he recognized from his world. They weren't all that different from how they were in his world from what he's heard of them. If they were still around, he'd imagine that they'd be important people to him here just like they were over there, and so he makes these trips to pay his respects. Luckily, no one would seriously question him for leaving flowers at a memorial stone, so he's never had to explain it like that. Not wanting the mood to turn somber, Naruto slipped a flower from the bouquet and offered it to the girl walking with him. She probably wanted to ask for one from the start, but it'd be inappropriate considering what they'd been bought for. Taking it with a gentle smile, Hinata pinched a portion of the stem off before fixing the flower into her hair. "Thank you," the girl said with a faint tinge of pink on her cheeks. After re-entering the village streets, the two of them came upon a familiar sight. "Please don't cry for my sake. Tears don't suit your pretty face," one Sasuke Uchiha said as he caressed the girl's cheek. In his world, Sasuke Uchiha was the second son of the Uchiha clan's head, always ranked top of the class, and gathered plenty of fans. These were all true for this world's version as well. The one noticeable difference was in how they treated the girls crushing on them. "Oh, for the love of..." Hinata muttered with a furrowed brow. Intent on ending this circus act, she proceeded to stomp her way over the raven-haired Casanova. "You really shouldn't waste your tear on this piece of human garbage," Hinata asserted as she slapped Sasuke's hand away from the girl's face. "Hinata, lovely as ever I see," Sasuke remarked with dead eyes as the Hyuga placed herself between him and his soon-to-be ex. "How many girls does that make for this month, huh? 2, 3 more?" Hinata questioned. Hinata, love isn't something that can be quantified," Sasuke responded. "Wah!" The girl behind Hinata gasped as the Hyuga's glare intensive. "You human piece of filth!" Hinata barked out as the girl took off, saying something along the line of "How could you? Why, and she's gone." Sasuke tried to call out but was too late. Rounding back on Hinata, "What's your problem?" "My problem is standing right here," Hinata shouted back. "You're a complete disgrace. Just throw your headband away and find a nice heavy rock to live under already," Hinata shouted as sparks began to fly between the two. "Annoying harpy. I broke up with her because I'm a shinobi now. I need to take the job seriously." Sasuke glared right back with gritted teeth. "Too little too late, don't you think? Better a flirt than a stalker." "Who's stalking who?" "You know who I'm talking about. Stop taking advantage of Naruto's generosity, and leave him be." "Say that again." "I dare you! Leave!" "Naruto! Allo! Enough already!" Naruto finally interjected as he pushed the two apart. "Every single time. It's like mixing oil and water with these two." "You heard him, get lost!" Hinata barked as she wrapped herself around one of Naruto's arms, glare never leaving her foe. "Yeah, I heard my best friend. So why don't you move along so we can catch up?" Sasuke responded as he hooked an arm around Naruto's other arm. "I'm so not dealing with this," Naruto thought to himself as he could feel the tug-of-war starting. Without a moment to spare, Naruto slipped away from the pair and took to the rooftops. As he took off, he could already hear the argument firing back up. Now that he could go at his own pace, Naruto soon arrived at the memorial stone. Though even here he found a familiar face. "I see you picked this assignment again," Naruto remarked as he walked up to the man cleaning off the large cut stone. He didn't have to worry about startling him. He was sure the man noticed him long before he came into the clearing. "Yeah," Obito made a short reply as he continued his work. Cleaning the memorial stone was a simple D-rank mission Genin straight out of the academy could do. So some would find it odd that a shinobi of Obito's caliber would snatch it up whenever he could. "They appreciate it, I'm sure," Obito commented as Naruto placed the flowers at the foot of the memorial. "You think?" "I'm not so sure. After all, I'm just some stranger dropping off flowers when I have the time," Naruto muttered as he knelt in front of the stone. "Is that your stubbornness talking again?" Obito asked with a small smile and a far-off look in his eye. Not much was said between them during their time there, and eventually they both left in peaceful silence. With his task complete, Naruto only had one other place he wanted to visit today. Unlike before, there weren't any distractions or detours, and soon Naruto found himself standing in front of Konoha's largest research facility. It was placed at the base of the cliff the Hokage stone faces were carved from, and from the outside it looked like an ordinary storage shed. Most of the building was carved into the mountain, and could be confusing for a first-time visitor to find their way around. Fortunately for Naruto, he knew the place like the back of his hand, and soon found the room he wanted. Opening the door, Naruto could see a sole occupant sitting at his desk and reviewing reports from his staff members. His youthful appearance belied his age. His attire was that of an ordinary shinobi except for his choice to swap out the standard green vest for a white lab coat, and his long black hair was pulled back to keep it from getting in the way. Orochimaru-sensei. Naruto gently called out to get the man's attention. HM? Oh, Naruto, I was wondering when you'd stop by. Orochimaru said as he placed the document in hand to the side. Already knew I was back, huh? And here I thought I could surprise you. Naruto replied with a sheepish grin. Word travels fast, my boy. The man told him as he got up from his chair. Though I am glad you've come to pay me a visit. I wanted to talk to you about the project you've been working on. Orochimaru said as he walked over to the blonde. You looked over it, did you? Naruto asked with a grin. I have. I also jotted down some notes on possible solutions to that irritating roadblock you seem to have reaches. Why don't we go take a look? You noticed? Naruto asked as his grin dropped. Despite all the many hours he spent here helping Orochimaru, he was still far away from being able to half the things he could do. There were many times he'd had to ask some of the staff or even Orochimaru himself for help when he'd reached some kind of problem that was comparatively simple for them to handle. It was a bit disheartening at times, but even his failures fascinated Orochimaru. Even if the idea was impossible from the start, Orochimaru would encourage him to see just what kind of work around his mind would come up with to reach his goal. Every time he'd fail, Orochimaru would be there to help him back onto his feet. It's easy to tell when you're frustrated, was all Orochimaru said as he walked past the boy. Oh, come on! It isn't that obvious, Naruto called out as he followed after the man. Time seemed to fly by while they worked, but before long the sun had set, and it was time to head home. This was all fine and all, however, something was off. Walking through the streets, Naruto couldn't help but make repeated glances to the side. Is something wrong? Orochimaru asked after the umpteenth time the blonde's gaze shifted to him. He'd left his lab coat at the research facility, so he was just wearing the dark blue pants and long-sleeved shirt standard to the village shinobi. Why are you walking me home? You never walk me home, Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. I simply have business in this direction. Don't think anything of it. The man responded. We're almost at my house. It's right over there, Naruto blurted out as he pointed at said house less than 50 feet from them. Yes, we are, the man replied, leaving the boy to simmer as they kept walking. As Naruto went to open the door, he began to say, I don't know what you're up to, you, and as soon as the door swung open, the boy was rendered speechless. Welcome home. Standing in the foyer waiting for him were most of the handful of people who knew his origin, all with smiles on their faces. His parents, Obito, Rin, Dan, all of them were holding up a banner reiterating what they'd all cheered. Welcome home, Naruto. His statue act only came to an end when he felt a hand ruffle up his hair. Tilting his head back, he saw his sensei smiling at him. You're home, Naruto. With a turn of the handle and a small push, Naruto opened the door separating the hallway he stood in and the Hokage's office. You wanted to see me? Naruto asked when he saw the white-haired man sitting behind the desk. Yes, Dan replied as he reached down and pulled open a drawer. As soon as Naruto saw the small bundle of letters, Naruto knew what the man wanted. I'll have it taken care of before you know it, Naruto told the man as he took the bundle. Thank you, the man softly said with a gentle smile. After leaving the office, it was straight back home to prepare. As he rounded on the small gate outside their home, he saw his mother leaving. Just in time. I was just about to pick some things up for dinner. Anything in particular you want? Kushina asked. Sorry, Mom, I have a stack of letters to deliver, so I won't be home tonight, or for the next few days, Naruto informed the woman, and felt a tinge of pain when he noticed a very brief flash of sadness on his mother's face. Oh, that's fine. I'll go and get my things together, Kushina enthusiastically said with a fist pump. You really don't need to, Naruto said with a nervous smile as the woman turned to head back into the house. What about dinner? You still need to buy groceries, right? It'll be fine. I can whip something up from what we still have in the kitchen when I get back. Besides, Minato knows how to cook, so he's fine even if we take a while. Kushina replied. Meanwhile, back at the Hokage's tower, Dan was holding a meeting with his council in a small soundproof room. In the center of the room was a small rectangular table with sofas on two sides and chairs taking the other two sides. Dan sat at one of the chairs. Opposite him in the other chair sat Minato. To his left was Orochimaru, and to his right sat Fugaku Uchiha. Naruto will be out of the village for the next few days, Dan stated. That will make it easier to use his illness as an excuse. Orochimaru added. But if we keep pulling the same trick, then our opponents will wisen up to it. I'm sure they're already growing tired of us dodging the issue. Minato surmised. We wouldn't be in this situation if you hadn't brought your son with you on all of those assignments. Fugaku remarked with a sigh. In response, Minato had the decency to apologize. The situation they were in? Marriage interviews, and or thinly veiled marriage interviews for one Naruto Uzumaki. It wouldn't be so terrible if little Naruto had simply caught the eye of a little lass while accompanying his father on his goodwill visits, but that wasn't the case. The world had changed since the last war came to an end. During that time, Amagekyo and a group known as Akatsuki formed an alliance to work toward world peace. Over time, many smaller nations joined them, and even the 5 great nations couldn't overlook them at a certain point. The system in place between the nations has indeed reduced the risk of outright warfare. However, old grudges were still there, and people were constantly seeking any way to get an edge on the opposition. That boy has a knack for gathering people around him. They believe in him, and want to follow after him, Fugaku said. It didn't matter where Minato took the boy, he helped people out, butted heads, and always left with a new group of friends waving him off. In this day and age when all the big international battles were won and lost depending on who you were close with, and who you'd previously pissed off, Naruto's innate people skills were highly sought after. Add his heritage into the mix, and the situation became clear. Naruto was a prize that other nations wanted to seize and bend to their will. The requests are coming in more frequently. We can't just refuse them all. Dan sighed. We're nearly finished with our countermeasures, but we'll need a bit of cooperation on Naruto's part before going any further. Orochimaru said as he pointed his gaze toward Minato. I haven't mentioned it to him yet, Minato admitted as he averted his eyes. This garnered a chorus of groans from the other 3. He's never shown an interest in dating before, so it's never come of naturally. Now that it's being forced, it just feels unnatural. Minato told them. If you can't broach the subject, then I'll have Kushina handle it. Dan informed him. Understood. The blond man replied with a hung head. In the meantime, we'll have to rely on my boy and the Hyuga girl to keep the more unsavory of his suitors at bay, Fugaku said. It wasn't that any of them had told them to do that, mind you. Those 2 were simply overprotective of the boy. Outside of the village found Naruto and Kushina traveling away from the village. As opposed to his typical orange outfit, Naruto wore a dark blue-gray robe with gray lining and a fur collar, and a tattered gray-blue cape emblazoned with a mandala comprised of 9 reddish-brown circles of varying sizes atop a larger green-gray circle. To top off his new appearance, he wore a white kitsune mask and had his hair color changed from golden blonde to pitch black. Such a drastic change in appearance wasn't without purpose. The recipient of these letters was in the other world. His identity over there needed to stay hidden, especially now that he'd abandoned the village. It was also for the recency of his departure that they were traveling farther from the village than usual for the jump. Once they were a suitable distance from the village, Naruto came to a stop along the dirt road, Kushina stopping beside him. This should do, Naruto said as he turned toward his mother. Before he'd been able to fully face her, he'd already been pulled into her embrace. Stay safe. And don't do anything reckless, okay? The woman said as she gently stroked her hand over his head. It'll be fine, Mom. I'll be back before you can even miss me, Naruto assured her as he returned the hug. Impossible, I miss you already, Kushina told him with a soft chuckle as his body started to glow. Original world. I'll see you when I get back, Naruto said, and then he found himself alone on the side of the road. Lowering his hands, he took a brief look around to see if anyone was in view. There were a few restrictions with his power. One was that he couldn't use it to travel to a part of the world he wasn't in. For example, if he used this power while standing in front of Konoha's main gate, his destination would be that exact same spot in front of the gate in the other world. Another restriction was his inability to take any other living creature with him. Feeling confident that he was saved, Naruto slipped a thumb under his mask and bit through his skin. With a sufficient amount of blood drawn, he went through a set of hand signs before a cloud of smoke puffed up from the ground before him. From the smoke appeared a white fox the size of a typical house cat. Its eyes seemed to be permanently shut with a quarter-sized black dot above each eye, a sizable jar of ink tied around its neck with a thick red rope, a red open vest with pouches stuffed full of paper slips, and a white circle on the back with the kanji for fox written in it, and the tip of its bushy tail was stained black with ink. Been a while, Naru. Let me guess, we're looking for Tsunade again. The fox greeted. Sorry, Kyukichi, I feel like I only ever call you for this. Naruto apologized. Nah, think nothing of it, Kyukichi said as he reached for a slip of paper. Dropping it on the ground, his tail curled around to dip the tip on his ink pot to use like a brush. I've gotten pretty good at finding the girls, so this shouldn't take long at all, he said as he quickly finished up his seal. Thanks, Naruto told him as he formed a single hand sign. 9 masks Vaha, Suzaku. Naruto called out the name of the jutsu, and above him formed a ring with the kanji for vermilion in the center. From the circle emerged a large bird with elegant and dramatic plumage wearing a similar mask to the one Naruto currently did. You really know how to travel with style, Kyukichi commented as he hopped onto the bird with the now floating tag making circles around him. Once Naruto was on, the creature spread its large wings, and a few flaps later it had taken to the sky. The tracking tag had a limited range, about 9 to 10 miles. So, the first day went about uneventfully as the pair soared through the skies above the land of fire. Leaves rustled silently as several bodies dashed through the treetops. Each person wore the same outfit, black fabric overlaid with gray armor, and wearing white animal masks. They had one goal as they scoured the countryside: find and capture their target. Smelling good, Naru, the white fox remarked as he salivated over the cooking pot Naruto was tending to. It was midday of their third day searching. So far, they hadn't had even the slightest bit of luck finding Tsunade, but on the bright side they figured out where she isn't. I've gotten pretty good at this, I'll have you know, the boy bragged with a puffed-out chest. Tell me about it. When we first met, your cooking could barely be called food. Kyukichi's remark instantly deflated the boy's chest. Do you have to put it like that? Naruto muttered as he stirred the pot with less enthusiasm. He was met with chuckles. Those chuckles quickly died out when a familiar whirl reached their ears. Jumping out of the way, the pair dodged a massive shuriken that flew past them in the small clearing. The sharpened metal embedded itself into the trunk of a tree as the pair landed on opposite ends of the clearing. An annoyed click drew their attention, and when Naruto spotted the man standing in a nearby tree, he was grateful that he hadn't removed his mask to cook. The man, despite the cuts and scuffs, clearly wore a Konoha flax jacket, and had shoulder-length white hair. The only thing that differed from the boy's memory of the man was the missing headband that he always wore like a bandana. Not as dumb as you look, the man said as he loosened a second large shuriken from his back. But you're still going to die. So just lay down, and give me your supplies. And with that outburst, the second shuriken came soaring towards Naruto. Without batting an eye, Naruto reached into his pouch to pull out a single shuriken before jumping over the coming weapon. As the shuriken passed under him, Naruto let fly his own before going through a series of hand signs, finishing the jutsu before his feet landed back on the ground. In an instant the lone shuriken turned into a torrent of dozens. Seeing this, Mizuki leaned back, sticking firmly to the side of the branch to use it as a shield. The moment the thunks of metal meeting would stop, he dropped to the ground with a kunai in hand. Damn you! The man bellowed as he charged forward. Only inches from his prey, he went to slash the boy apart, only to feel a solid whack to the back of the head, and then nothing. What's this guy doing out here? The clone that just knocked the man out pondered as Mizuki unceremoniously dropped. He probably ran for the hills once he was found out, but come on. Did the village really let this guy slip out? The original Naruto remarked. Wonder later. We're about to have company. Kakashi barked. Like Naruto, he too jumped into action right away, pulling out several seals to set up a sensory barrier to sniff out reinforcements. Shit! Naruto cussed as he dispersed his clone. Lunch is off. I'll call you back later, Naruto said as he released the summoning jutsu. As the fox vanished in a cloud of smoke, Naruto's body became shrouded in light before vanishing himself. Moments later, 8 figures dropped into the clearing, members of Konoha's elite ANBU. It didn't take them long to apprehend the unconscious Mizuki, but they were now left with questions. Mizuki didn't just knock himself out. Splitting into groups of 4, one group proceeded to take the fugitive back to the village while the other stayed behind to search for whoever it was that fought him. AU World. So, this is Konoha, huh? 8 feet of towering muscle remarked as he crossed the village's threshold. The sun sure is bright here. Short in comparison to his friend but average to everyone else was an average-build man with short brown hair remarked as he shielded his eyes with his hand. Continuing to walk unlike her 2 male companions was a young woman looking to be about 14 or 15 at a glance. One of the might great nation's villages, huh? She remarked as she looked up to the 5 Hokage carved into the mountain. So full of themselves, she said with a smirk. Their clothing and headbands clearly marked them as shinobi from Kusagakure. We're supposed to meet up with the Hokage before doing anything else. The man of average build reminded the group as he walked past his younger companion. Soon followed by the giant, the girl, and a few passes behind by their last companion. Short and covered from head to toe in a dark green cloak, and was impossible to tell what they looked like underneath. This should be far enough, Naruto said to himself as he flew over the forest on his masked bird. It had been 2 hours since that chance run-in with his old sensei, and the whole time he'd been flying at top speed. He was about to find a good place to slip into the other world when something caught his eye out in the distance. Turning direction, Naruto made a beeline for it. What is this? Now that he was hovering over the area, Naruto couldn't quite grasp what he was looking at. Below was a large swath of forest missing, and in its place was a blanket of putrid black sludge. Not a single blade of grass dared to grow here, and the smell had Naruto forcing down his breakfast even from 30 meters up. It was as if the forest had a large pus-filled wound staring him in the face. As much as he didn't want to get near it, he wouldn't learn anything from up here. Preparing to hold his breath and promising himself to get a gas mask when he got home, Naruto's masked bird started to descend. Now that he was flying only a few feet above the ground, Naruto scanned over the area for anything of note. That's when a small glint drew his attention. A headband. Pulling it out of the muck, Naruto brushed off the front to see what symbol was engraved in it. Why was the land of woods this far into the land of fire? Was the question that left his lips as Ri recalled whose shinobi wore this. They were a small nation that lacked a proper hidden village. Most of their shinobi came from scattered clans that would take shifts guarding the capital and daimyo. It is going to driving him mad not knowing, but he wasn't equipped to figure this out. Pulling out a small sealing scroll, Naruto unravels it and seals the headband inside. Next, he grabs his water canteen and downs its contents. He needed a sample, and this was his best option. After scooping up the sludge with the empty canteen, Naruto added it to the scroll. With those in hand, he quickly left for clean air. Once he was far enough away from the ruined forest to breathe and without puking, he landed and slipped of his bird. Biting the tip of his thumb, Naruto went through the motions for a summoning jutsu. When the smoke cleared, there were 2 animals before him. A head-sized orange toad named Gamakichi and a similarly sized purple snake named Hibitesu. Yo! Naruto, what's up? Gamakichi cheerfully greeted with a wave of his webbed hand. What is it? Hibitesu bluntly asked. I need you guys to deliver something for me, Naruto said as he handed over 3 scrolls, 1 for Gamakichi and 2 for Hibitesu. Something happen? You don't usually summon the both of us, Gamakichi asked, glancing over at his scaly counterpart as he took the offered scroll. Yeah, you could say that, Naruto answered while taking a quick glance over his shoulder. Found something weird and want to let Dad and Sensei know about it. Understood. Hibitesu grunted before vanishing in a cloud of smoke to deliver the scrolls. Always in a rush, that guy, Gamakichi quipped with a smirk and shake of his head. Don't worry, Naruto, I'll get this to Minato. No sweat. And with that he too vanished in a cloud of smoke. Tilting his head back to stare up at the vast blue sky, Naruto let out a small sigh. Hopefully, this wouldn't turn into anything serious. Back in Konoha, Namike's residence. Minato, sweetie, I love you, but this plan is stupid. Kushina told her husband after being sat down in their kitchen and told what he and the others had come up with. I know, but we can't do nothing either. Minato reasoned. If they took too long or simply did nothing, then someone will slip in and stir up trouble. The best scenario would be a union built on love and understanding, but we can't count on that happening. So, we need to prepare for the worst. But a fake engagement? Kushina shot back. Naruto should get to fall in love normally. It's the least he deserves. Slamming her hands on the table, Kushina stood from her chair with a fierce look in her eyes. Returning her ferocity with a sad expression, Minato replied, You know that's not an option. Not as long as he shows us to live in this world. Hearing the bitter truth, Kushina bit her lower lip before slumping back into her chair. With a defeated sigh, she asked who they had in mind. We've decided to go with these three, Minato said as he pulled out a vanilla envelope. After taking it and luing over the contents, Kushina's resigned acceptance quickly fell apart. Minato. A chill ran down the man's back as his wife addressed him. What's with these ages? They're way too old. The redhead demanded to know as she slammed the papers on the table. Kushi, calm down? Minato pleaded. Anyone taking this mission will be targeted by other villages sooner or later. They need to be able to defend themselves and Naruto, so the age gap was unavoidable. Minato told her. Unavoidable? Unavoidable. The youngest one here is 19. Fucking 19. They're all grown-ass women. Kushina bellowed as she crumpled up the papers in fury. Yo, Minato, IHGH. After just arriving, the toad narrowly avoided Kushina's fists as she slammed them. Terrified, the small toad hopped into Minato's chest. The hell did I just walk in on? Gamakichi croaked out, to which Minato could only reply with an apologetic smile. He could do nothing now but let her blow off steam. It was Naruto's 5th day of searching, late into the evening as the sky turned from blue to vibrant shades of orange and violet, when Kikichi finally picked up Tsunade's signature. Without hesitation, the pair flew in her direction at top speed, coming to a mid-sized tourist town. Landing out of sight, just inside the forest surrounding the town, Naruto released his mount. With Kikichi in tow, he then made his way out of the woods and into town. Even with the sun about to set, the main streets were still lively. People from many places and backgrounds gathered in places like this, and these towns were accustomed to many lifestyles, from early birds to night owls. No matter what time of day or night, there was something to do. As the pair chased after Tsunade's chakra signature, they soon found what she'd chosen to do with her time. Of course. Naruto muttered as they stood outside what was obviously a bar. At least she's consistent. Kikichi chirped. No point in standing out here. Counter to the disappointment in his tone, Naruto was excited to see the old woman again, but she could do with better hobbies. At this time of day, the place was starting to fill with patrons, and the odd pair had no issues slipping in. Once inside, it didn't take long to spot a familiar head of blonde hair sitting in one of the side booths. Hey, Suna, the boy was in the middle of greeting as he approached when he froze up. Tsunade wasn't alone, and he recognized the man sitting with her. A cold sweat ran down his neck and his breath caught in his throat as stared at the man's back. He was someone Naruto had only ever seen in photos but whose reputation far exceeded him. Turning his attention from Tsunade's wide-eyed expression, the white-haired sage turned in his set to look at Naruto. Friend of yours? Jiraiya asked his old teammate. His expression was far from harsh, gentle even, but it still sent shivers through Naruto's body. Just relax. I never mentioned my Menma persona in any of the letters I left Irika-sensei, or the old man. If I keep my mask on, he won't recognize me. Naruto desperately thought to himself. Menma! A voice piercing the fog reached out to the boy from behind. He didn't need to look to know who it was. How long has it been? It feels like you've grown an inch since last time. Tsunade's black-haired apprentice greeted him from behind, her pet pig Taunton held in her arms. She must have returned from doing something or other. You know how to play, right? Come. Take a seat. Tsunade, her expression softening back to normal, offered as she gathered up the cards scattered on the table. Hey! Jiraiya blurted out as he turned back to the woman. Don't use him as an excuse to end our game. I was just about to win. The man whined while clutching the cards in his hand. While Tsunade was ignoring her old friend's protests, Shizen took her seat next to her mentor, leaving the spot next to Jiraiya for Naruto. Taking those last few steps over to the table, Naruto stopped and turned to fully face Jiraiya. You're Jiraiya of the Sannin, right? Naruto asked. HM? Stopping his complaints short, the man turned his attention back to the boy. Forming a big grin, he began. Oh, know who I am, huh? Well, I can't blame you. I am famous after all. There isn't a nation who hasn't heard of the great Toad Sage Jiraiya. While his attention was held by his ego, Tsunade reached over and yanked the cards out of his hand. I'm a fan of your writing, actually. Naruto told him as he reached into his back pouch. This drew a cocked eyebrow from the white-haired sage. You're a bit young to be reading my books, aren't ya? His concern soon faded into a sense of nostalgia, however, when he saw the book Naruto pulled out. A simple-looking brown book with only the title on its cover, The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. Taking the offered book, Jiraiya quickly flipped through its contents. Most of my fans don't even know this book exists. I'm surprised to see someone your age carrying it around. He admitted. It's your best work. Naruto enthusiastically told him. This earned a hearty chuckle from the man. My best work, huh? It'd be a shame if I hit my peak with my first book. How about you read some of my other work once you're older? I'm sure you'll be singing a different tune then, Lord Jiraiya. You can't just tell someone his age to read those books. Shizen blurted out with flushed cheeks. I said when he's older. Jiraiya defended himself as he reached into his vest to pull out a pen. Hey kid, it was Menma, right? How about I sign this for ya, since you're a big fan and all? The man offered as he scooched over to give Naruto more room to sit down. Don't go getting a big head. It's full of enough hot air as it is. Tsunade told her friend as she dished out hands for their game. Harsh, Tsunade. Harsh. Jiraiya mindlessly said as he signed Naruto's book. Unbelievable. Jiraiya burst out after some time. That makes 4 out of 6 games you've won. What gives? The man complained while giving Naruto the stink eye. Naruto's response was a shoulder shrug, only further irritating the sage. Kid's just lucky when it comes to this sort of thing. He's a gambling prodigy. Tsunade remarked as she went about reshuffling the cards. It doesn't exactly make me happy to be called a gambling prodigy. Naruto muttered as he leaned back against the seat. At least you won't have to worry about money while you travel. Not with that kind of luck. Shizen jumped in with Taunton adding an oink of agreement. Traveling, huh? I bit young to be wandering around by yourself. Jiraiya commented. Been moving from place to place for as long as I can remember. Hard to settle down in one place when you're used to moving. Naruto picked one of his rehearsed lines. It would be easier to poke holes in his backstory if he lived in any one place, and if he's asked about specific places then he can use his experiences while traveling with his father to answer them. More or less anyway. By yourself though? Jiraiya repeated the main point of his question. My parents are shinobi. They've trained me enough to get by when they're not around. Naruto told him, hoping he'd drop it sooner rather than later. He had spent hours practicing and remembering his background, but he wasn't an espionage expert. The longer he had to keep up the role, the more likely it was for him to slip up and contradict himself. Fair enough. Jiraiya relented. He had seen kids in worse situations during his time. I don't suppose you could help me out then, since you travel a lot. Jiraiya continued as he pulled out a picture. There's someone I'm looking for, kid about your age. His name's Naruto Uzumaki. Jiraiya said as he handed over a picture of Naruto. Don't suppose you've seen him? He asked. Taking the picture, Naruto pretended to look it over closely. They took a photo of the academy students at the beginning of every year to update their files. The picture Jiraiya had was the most recent of those photos. Sorry. Naruto apologized while offering back the photo. I can't say I've seen him. I figured as much, but why don't you keep that? Just in case you do run into him. Jiraiya said, refusing to take the photo back as he stood up. It was nice running into you again, but I should be getting back on the road. Work and all that, Jiraiya told Tsunade as he shimmed past Naruto. Yeah. Nice seeing you. Tsunade replied as the man walked away and eventually disappeared into the dwindling crowd outside. Once he was gone, Tsunade started to toss out cards again. You should have some cash on you. So, let's make this one interesting. Tsunade challenged with a grin, ignoring Shizen's light complaint. Oh, come on. I'm not going to play card games with you all night. Naruto told her as he got roped into another few games. Hours later had Tsunade leaning out the window of the room she'd rented in one of the inns, simply watching the sun rise in the distance. In her hand was one of Dan's latest letters, while in the room behind her Shizen was still fast asleep. They had offered to let Naruto stay with them, but he'd stubbornly refused and got his own room somewhere. Letting out a content sigh, she asked, "What did you think? It looks like he's doing just fine." A voice from above answered. Sitting on the roof above her, Jiraiya was also watching the sunrise. I'll admit, we were pretty worried when we read the letters he left behind. We thought for sure that someone was tricking him, but your story gives it a bit more credibility. Jiraiya told her. I wouldn't have said anything if you hadn't gone rummaging through my stuff. Tsunade told him with clear annoyance in her voice. You're not the type of person who goes around writing letters. I couldn't help myself when I saw you carrying some around. He told her. Yeah. She waved off his excuse. It stings knowing he doesn't trust me enough to tell the truth, but I suppose I've never given him a reason to. Jiraiya admitted with a tinge of sorrow in his words. If it makes you feel bad, then get off your ass and do something about it. It's not too late to make it up to him. Tsunade berated him. A brief moment of silence hung between them when the sound of Jiraiya standing up broke the silence. You're right, Jiraiya said as the morning breeze brushed past him. I'll start by letting Sensei know he doesn't have to worry. The sage said as he jumped to the next roof over. Turning back towards Tsunade, he then asked, You said he comes by about once a month, right? Yeah, what of it? She asked with a raised eyebrow. Then I'll be paying you another visit soon, Jiraiya said before heading off for the village. Hearing that, a vein popped out on Tsunade's forehead. Don't bother, the blonde Sennin grumbled to herself. In the room Naruto was renting, it was silent save for the light snoring coming from one white fox curled up on the futon. Naruto sat off to the side with the tail of the utterly gutsy shinobi resting on his lap. With a smile he stared down at the autograph adorning the front. He's just like you described him. 8 days after taking the letters to deliver, Naruto was walking into the village with a bundle of letters for Dan. First order of business was to head home and change out of his Menma outfit. It was easy to hide, and because it didn't suit him, the sooner he could get back into his usual clothes the better. No one was home, so after that it was straight to the Hokage's tower. Naruto! A happy voice met the blonde a few steps into the building. The source was one Sakura Haruno, as her and her team were on their way to the exit. She quickly shortened the distance between them as Naruto returned the greeting. Hey Naruto, look! Look! The pink-haired lass beamed as leaned forward to show off the metal plate tied around her forehead. Don't you think it sweets me? Her enthusiasm seemed infectious as Naruto's lips broke into a wide smile. You kidding? Of course, it looks good on you. You're a real shinobi now. Naruto excitedly responded. Yeah. You bet I am. Sakura cheered while throwing a fist in the air. Don't go getting a big head. You barely know anything past what the academy taught us. Came the voice of the team's second girl, a glasses-wearing redhead. Her words put a slight dent in Sakura's enthusiasm, but she'd shake it off after a moment. Her eyes then turned from her teammate to the boy she was standing in front of. Auntie said you took a trip to get some fresh air. It help any? Karen asked. Yeah. I feel good as new. Naruto responded as he grabbed his shoulder and flexed his arm to show off how healthy he was. If you say so. Karen said with a sigh and a shrug of her shoulders. A little way behind their sensei glanced down at his final student. Don't feel like saying hello? Obito asked with a strong poke to Sasuke's cheek. Huh? Why? Seemingly ripped from his thoughts from his sensei's act, the young Uchiha started frantically looking around. Something up? You've been acting strange lately. Obito asked with his visible eyebrow raised. You know you can tell me anything, the man said as his junior's eyes landed on him. Ah, no. Sasuke hesitantly replied as his gaze drifted over to his friends. It's nothing to worry about, the boy added as he started to walk over to the others. I'll be here if and when you want to elaborate, Obito told him. It was clear that he wasn't buying it. No surprise considering how long they've known each other. Shaking off Obito's concerned gaze, Sasuke put a smile on his face as he quickened his pace. Raising his hands up dramatically, he passed through his teammates, like he was parting a curtain. It's just awful, Naruto. I'm blessed enough to be placed on a team with two lovely girls, but they just had to be the second and third most aggravating ladies in all of Konoha. I don't know how much more of this I can take, Sasuke confided in his blonde friend as he wrapped an arm around his shoulder. What was that? Come again? Sakura/Karen growled out as they leered at their teammate. See what I mean? They get angry at the smallest things. The Uchiha complained. Angry? Oh. You haven't even seen angry yet, Sakura told him with clenched fists. Keep it up, Sasuke. I'll flatten that two-faced, flirting ass of yours before you can blink, Karen said as she trembled in fury. Feeling his shoulders drop, Naruto let a sigh escape his lips. What did he do? Hearing Naruto's response, Sasuke smirked and let go. Turning around, he headed for the door as his teammates started to rattle of complaints. His smile turned into a thin line as he dropped back into his thoughts. Don't worry. I'll take care of the shadows nipping at your feet. So just keep smiling. The Uchiha thought to himself as he mindlessly put one foot in front of the other. Sasuke, the bastard. Naruto grumbled to himself with folded arms as he made his way to Dan's office, stirring up the hornet's nest and leaving him to deal with it. Who does he think he is? Maybe a soak in the hot springs would help him relax once he drops off the letters. Naruto had expected to see Dan sitting at his desk looking over some papers or addressing one of his shinobi. So when he opened the door to his office to see his mother and all three of the Hokage's assistants waiting with the Hokage, he was understandably surprised. Sorry. Didn't know you were busy, Naruto blurted out as he went to shut the door. Take a seat, Naruto. Dan's voice reached the boy before the door fully shut. The confusion written on Naruto's face was evident as he opened the door again. We've been waiting for you. There's something very important we need to tell you, the Hokage told him in all seriousness. Original world. Yeah. This matches with how he looked, Jiraiya said after going over the Mizuki's interrogation report. Taking a long puff on his pipe, Hiruzen leaned back in his chair. Letting the smoke ruminate in his lungs for a moment, the old Hokage breathed out the purple smoke before saying, and now we have his new persona on paper in some filing cabinet. What do you want to do? It's not too late to alter the report and sweep it under the rug, Jiraiya suggested. A moment passed as Hiruzen considered it. Finally, I don't think that will be necessary, the old man said before taking another swig of tobacco. After refilling the space around him with smoke, Hiruzen elaborated. Mizuki was already labeled a criminal and struck first. We have no reason to pursue him on those grounds. Pausing to fill his lungs with smoke again, Hiruzen once more skimmed over the report Jiraiya made. If we add in the information depicting him as the child of roaming shinobi, then we can simply file Menma as a low-priority case. He'll be able to fly under the radar like nothing ever happened. Right. No one looks into those. We don't have the manpower to waste on the small stuff. Jiraiya nodded in agreement. I'll leave the paperwork to you then, the Toad Sage said as he went to leave. Once he was alone, Hiruzen sat for a good long while just thinking. For as happy he was that Naruto found a place to belong, he was frustrated with himself for failing to provide that here. Furthermore, was the very real fact that Konoha now lacked a Jinchuriki. They had never needed to unleash the power of the tailed beast before, but just having it was a major deterrent to other villages. Despite their best efforts, it was only a matter of time before the news leaked to other nations. Then he had to worry about threats from inside the village. He could already picture a few faces who will not sit idly by and watch from the sidelines. I'm getting too old for this. Hiruzen sighed. AU world. Had he not been sitting, Naruto's quivering legs would have given out on him as his situation was spelled out for him. What's this about marriage? And why does it have to be me? Naruto demanded. If you'd paid attention just now, you'd know we were in this mess because of you. Fugaku said in an exasperated tone. I'm also to blame for bringing him along. Minato interjected. I was simply happy to see you making so many friends. I didn't see the problem until it was too late. I'm sorry. Kushina apologized. An irresistible prize dangled in front of their noses. It's no wonder the other villages want you so badly. We would do the same if the roles were reversed. Orochimaru added. Whether you noticed it or not, Naruto, you're the type of person who inspires people to follow you. That's a powerful gift now more than ever. The other villages are simply worried about what would happen to their position in the world if we cultivated that gift for ourselves. Dan further explained. And how is that fair? I didn't ask to be a prize. Naruto all but shouted, frustration flowing out of every muscle in his face. That's why we came up with this plan. Kushina told him. If we do this, then it'll deter the other villages. His mother said. And how, exactly? Apparently, there's no one has a problem with throwing multiple girls at me. Naruto said with a pointed look. Majority rule. If most of your brides are loyal to Konoha, then it's obvious that you wouldn't be as easily swayed. The other villages arguing that political marriage will strengthen our bonds as an excuse to get at you. One is hard to outright refuse, but two or more would be easier to handle. Minato explained. Even in this time of peace, shinobi need to continue to hone their talents, train new generations, and manage mission requests. There are only so many resources they can dump into this. We're simply setting the odds in our favor to get rid of the villages who can't afford to waste time on an unlikely outcome, and reduce the will of those with time on their hands. Fugaku told him. The plan's not perfect, of course. Orochimaru started. The more villages who conclude that young Naruto here is out of their reach, the more of them will decide it's in their best interest to eliminate him before it becomes an issue. The Sannin warned. Eliminate. Naruto gasped as he brought a hand up to his neck. It was always a risk, so the plan doesn't change that too greatly. Dan started, trying to assuage the boy's concern. But dealing with physical threats is easier, so it's better if you think of it that way. We will also be providing you with A&BU guard on top of the protection you'll receive from your brides-to-be. At the moment, this is the safest route we have available to us. The Hokage said as he slid a small stack of papers toward the boy. But we can't continue further with this unless you give your support. Dan reminded him. Naruto grumbled as he looked down at the papers. They'd brought them out earlier while first explaining everything. If her signed these, then he'd officially be married. At least as far as paper trails were concerned. You don't have to decide right now, but we'll need an answer soon. Minato said as he placed a reassuring hand on his son's back. I think we can end this with introductions. Dan spoke up. Come in. And with those words the door clicked open. Turning far enough in his chair to look back, Naruto saw 3 women entering the room. The first was a woman wearing red lipstick with fair skin, dark eyes and light blue hair which she kept in a spiky ponytail with long strands of hair framing her face. The second had long wavy purple hair with cropped bangs hanging over her forehead protector with only the Konoha symbol showing on it. The last was the only one Naruto recognized, Dan's niece. She shockingly resembled her late Aunt Tsunade save for her rounder face. These are the 3 hand-picked by Orochimaru, Fugaku, and myself. Guren works directly under Orochimaru and possesses a rare and power Kekkei Jankai. Dan said, motioning to the woman with blue hair. Taking a small bow, Guren proclaimed, Lord Orochimaru has entrusted your safety to me. I will not disappoint. Next is Naori Uchiha. A fine shinobi whose excellent work in our police force speaks for itself. Dan then motioned to the one with purple hair. You're safe with me. I promise, Naori said with a quick nod. And you've already met Azumi. Long time no see, huh? You used to be such a little brat and now look at you. You've grown into a big brat before I knew it. Azumi animatedly blurted out, using her hand to mime Naruto's current height. These are the shinobi selected from dozens of candidates who will be entrusted with this mission, were Dan's confident words. I guess this is the place, Naruto muttered as he stood outside what looked like a regular apartment complex. He'd read and reread the address he'd been given, and this was definitely the place. It's been a day since Naruto was brought in on the plan. He has yet to give an answer, but regardless of what he decided, he was told he needed to attend sexual education and anti-seduction classes. Reaching out, Naruto rung the buzzer. From the speaker a voice called out asking what his business here was. I'm Naruto Uzumaki. I was told to come here. At his response, Naruto heard the door unlock. When he opened the door, he was met with a normal-looking foyer with an old gran sitting behind the counter. So you're Naruto, eh? The old lady half-asked, half-affirmed. She wore an unassuming dark blue kimono with cream-colored trimming. Her gray hair was pulled into a tight bun save for a strip of bangs that hung down to her chest and covered half of her left eye. Grabbing hold of the cane resting on the back of her chair, the old gran flicked her wrist, slapping the thing against the counter with a loud snap. The sudden noise startled Naruto, who jumped in his skin, mentally cursing out the woman. Hachiro! Get your ass down here! Our special guest has finally decided to show up. The woman bellowed at a volume unbefitting someone her age. What's with this old bat? Naruto thought as he watched the woman bash her cane on the counter a few more times. I'm coming, Gran. A voice rang down the steps next to the counter, followed by a series of steps. The man who produced that voice soon came into view as he strode with elegance down the steps. He wore the same kind of kimono as the old lady, hiding most of his physique, but what caught Naruto's attention was his face. The man was gorgeous. His features looked like they were sculpted by world-renowned artisans and framed by long, silky smooth locks of midnight black hair. He was practically a walking wet dream. What's taking so long? Are you trying to wait for this old bag of bones to croak before doing anything? The woman grumbled. Not at all, Gran. The man answered without turning his gaze toward the woman. Greetings, Naruto. My name is Hachiro. I'll be your instructor for the foreseeable future. Hachiro introduced himself with a bow. Ah, yeah? Nice to meet ya. Naruto returned hesitantly. I want to go home. Naruto internally wished. Leaning back up, Hachiro stretched his arm out toward the stairs he'd recently come down. Shall we get going then? What are we dealing with here? Dan asked to begin his latest meeting with his 3 advisors. After searching the area, we've concluded that there were 12 shinobi from the Land of Woods based off the clothing and weapons found in the area. No bodies were recovered, Minato said as he laid out photos and documentation from the site. With his space-time ninjutsu, it was easy for him to travel from the village to the site seamlessly, so he'd been spearheading the on-site investigation. Since we don't have bodies to determine a time of death, we had to look at the damage to surroundings to determine when the fight took place. We're confident in saying this took place 8 to 10 days ago. Dan nodded as he put down Minato's written report and took hold of Orochimaru's findings. It says here that black sludge found at the site is a mass of rotting plant matter, animals, and humans. Dan said as his eyes focused on the Sannin. That's right. Orochimaru answered as his gaze drifted down to a picture of the forest scar. I could quickly rule out acidic attacks. The headband Naruto sent was devoid of any organic material. Skin cells, blood, hair follicles, nothing outside of the biomass covering the rest of the site. This pattern repeats itself with the other articles retrieved from the site. Yet everything recovered showed no signs of erosion. Acid strong enough to completely dissolve a human body would damage the clothing as well, Orochimaru said as he spread out photos off the recovered clothing. True to his word, the only damage shown was from slash marks that had been picked clean of the blood you'd expect from such injuries. This was further confirmed when I tested the samples. The material hadn't been dissolved but decomposed rapidly at that. It says here that the most likely cause is an unknown fungus? Fugaku asked as he looked over the part of the report he was referencing. Correct. Despite most of the organic material being too far gone to run a DNA analysis, there are portions intact enough to recover. The overwhelming majority of the DNA recovered was from a fungus that isn't in our system and doesn't match any fungus recovered from the area surrounding the site. The samples were also considerably decomposed, so I have to assume that the fungus lasts for a short period of time or turns on itself once it consumes everything else. The Sannin explained. After hearing Orochimaru's explanation, the Uchiha took on a pensive look. Do you have a lead? Dan asked the man. Reaching down to the table, Fugaku shoved papers out of the way to give a better look at the map they had spread out. As you can see, the skirmish took place near a route between Konoha. He started as he placed his finger on a marked road and then ran it along the path, and Kusa. Fugaku finished as he stopped on the marker for the village. You think the Kusa team had a hand in this? Minato questioned as his eyes narrowed at the map. In response, Fugaku pulled out a folder he'd brought with him. When he put it on the table and opened it, there were dossiers on 4 people. The team leader, Kiyoshi Tanaka. Age 19. A man of unassuming appearance who has risen far in his village. He specializes in political dealings, so his fighting style isn't well understood outside his affinity for earth jutsu. Fugaku said as he slid one dossier into the center of the table. The picture associated with it depicted a man with no noticeable features, which was noticeable in of itself. You'd never spot him in a crowd unless you were already looking for him. Team Muscle, Masajiro Matsumoto. Age 39. During the last war he served as one of Kusagakure's hard-hitting frontliners. He specializes in body enhancements. Using chakra he can bolster his already immense strength for devastating blows. In the past he's had difficulty dealing with mid to long-range fighters, but it's unclear whether or not he's improved on this weakness since the war. Fugaku said as he pushed out the next dossier. The picture showed a man of impressive stature with broad shoulders, rippling muscles, and a piercing gaze. The team's vital member, Amaya Tamura. Age 14. At Kusagakure's insistence, she's come on a diplomatic mission to win Naruto's favor and strengthen bonds between the 2 villages. Most of our reports covering her combat abilities come from her participation during the Chunin exams held in Iwagakure 2 years ago. She displayed excellent skills as a leader, single-handedly taking her team to the finals and made Chunin upon her return to Kusagakure. Her fighting style seems to revolve around weaponizing blades of grass. Fugaku said as he pushed her dossier forward. The picture showed a girl sporting a confident expression. Her long forest green hair looked to fall to the base of her back before being looped back up so the ends could be braided into a hair accessory resembling a crown of thorns. As far as looks were concerned, she was well suited to the role she was assigned. And lastly, we have Den Kanoko. Age 11. Officially, this is her first assignment, but given she'd from the Kanoko clan, we can assume her ninjutsu revolve around the use of mushrooms. Fugaku said as he pushed forward the last dossier. The picture showed a girl with short, unkempt gray hair and a dead, expressionless face. So young. Dan muttered as he recalled his short meeting with the Kusa group. He hadn't been able to see her face then, and she hadn't spoken a single word, but something about her had felt off. You think she's responsible for the decay? Dan asked skeptically. Not because she was young, but because it didn't suit the Kanoko clan. The Kanoko have never been deployed on the battlefield. Their use of mushrooms and other fungi to infect their targets and influence their thoughts is powerful, but time-consuming. A successful infiltration takes months. Fugaku recounted what he knew of the clan's utility. That being said, we can't overlook the possibility. Has there been any unusual behavior? Dan asked the man. They're being monitored round the clock, but nothing out of the ordinary has been reported. Fugaku advised. I'd like to suggest an increase in shinobi assigned to the operation. We need to confirm if Ms. Den is a threat or not. Minato spoke up. She never leaves the apartment. Fugaku interjected, gaining a slightly annoyed look from the blonde. More eyes won't help if she never moves from the same spot. We'd be wasting resources. The man pointed out. Can you guarantee that she'll stay cooped up the whole visit? Minato asked. You shouldn't let personal feeling cloud your judgment. Fugaku countered with a stern gaze. And what's that supposed to mean? Minato asked, returning his own hard look. You're worried about tomorrow's meeting, yes? Orochimaru asked. Minato's downward gaze answered him well enough. I can't say much on the subject knowing I would have done the same in his situation. But you knew something like this would happen one day when he brought the two Uzumaki refugees home with him. Fugaku said after letting out a brief sigh. He spoke regarding what happened years ago when Minato took Naruto with him to Kusugakure. It was there that a young Naruto first met Karen and her mother. Even at that young age Naruto could see the mistreatment the pair received, and his efforts to help them only intensified once he found out they were related. They've come to collect on their favor. Dan spoke up. Even assuming everything we theorized here is true, that en route to the village the Kusa group ran into shinobi from the land of woods and fought, that they killed them and destroyed part of the forest, and that Den has the capability to destroy such a large area, we still can't refuse them on that basis. No Konoha shinobi were involved and we can't say who started the fight. They'd been given permission to enter the country unlike the shinobi from the land of woods, and it could easily be a case of self-defense. Den told Minato, who despite himself knew the Hokage was right. Trust me, Minato, when I say that I want to keep Naruto safe just as much as you do, but we only have so many shinobi. Right now, we can't afford to pull more shinobi from other assignments. Dan told him. Minato stayed silent for a moment as he hid his eyes behind interlocked fingers. I understand. Forgive me. As a shinobi, Minato knew they were right, but as a father his heart ached with the feeling he wasn't doing enough for his son. Meanwhile, in an apartment complex reserved for shinobi visiting the village, a far different yet similar conversation was taking place. Come on, Kyoshi, I need some input here. Amaya insisted as she stood before several outfits laid out on the floor. Her hands on her hips as she scowled at the man who was busy reading and ignoring her. Why are you asking me? Kyoshi asked as he finally put his book down on the desk and turned in his chair to look at the girl. What? You think I'm gonna ask the old guy for fashion advice? He can barely pick out his own shirts. Amaya retorted. They say clothes make the man, right? I need that kid wanting in my pants at first sight, or the clothes aren't good enough. Since you've looked over his file a dozen times now, you can help me pick out something to knock him on his ass. The girl reasoned. With a groan, Kyoshi got out of his chair. I suppose this is why I came, he said as he walked over to the clothes. After only a few seconds he was kicking away several sets. He's too oblivious to feminine charm for subtly, so these are out. These are no good since tasteless skin exposure will put distance between you. Your chest isn't anything special, he was saying and ignoring her protest, so we need to accentuate your hips and legs. After only a few minutes he was heading back to his seat, leaving a pile of discarded clothes in his wake. Any of those should do, he said, leaving her with 3 sets still laid out. Thanks, I guess, Amaya said while giving the man a look that said she wanted to clock him. Don't screw up tomorrow and I'll accept that as thanks, Kyoshi told her as he picked his book back up. Ha! Like that would ever happen? Amaya chirped as she gathered up the outfit she'd wear tomorrow. I never fail, she said as a toothy sneer spread across her lips. Back at the seduction department's secret HQ, with a pale face, Naruto watched as Hachiro pulled out another assassination tool commonly used in the field. On the table before him was a spread of other such devices ranging from poisonous lubricant and aphrodisiacs to strap-ons with hidden switchblades and things to shove into yourself that will slice apart any important bits that follow after it. What's with this cruel world? Naruto wondered to himself before being swiftly struck on the head by his instructor. I need your full attention, please. Any information missed here could get you killed in the future, Hachiro said with a sweet smile but shrouded in an ominous aura. I want to go home, Naruto mentally shouted as he rubbed the growing bump on his head. The sun shone bright in early afternoon, the birds chirped happily as they flew through the sky, and a gentle breeze washed over the village. It was time for battle. This feels so stupid, Naruto grumbled to himself as he fidgeted around in his seat. He was meeting his opponent in some dango shop like was scheduled. Since it was just him right now, he couldn't help but let his mind wander through today's events so far. He was practically dragged out of bed, washed, and dressed up by ANBU. He didn't look any different from normal, but they told him he needed to look presentable or risk insulting Kusa's representative. Even if he wanted to refuse the marriage proposal, it had to be done in a way that won't tarnish Kusagaku's reputation. So, acting out of character to make her refuse him was out of the question. The enemy surely had reports about him, so they knew what was and what wasn't normal for him. It also couldn't end after one meeting or they'd make a stink about it. Meaning he'd have to do this over and over again, till it was appropriate to turn them down, commit this route to memory and never deviate from it. We have to compromise in several areas, but this isn't one of them. The ANBU captain, a woman based off the figure and voice, with hair tied up with colorful rope and bells, told him while he ate breakfast. They had carted a white board into the kitchen covered in maps of the village, pictures and information on his opponents, and other relevant information. That's right. His mother quipped from her seat beside him. Even if it felt like ANBU HQ today, this was still their home. The three of them were still eating together like normal. They're here to court you, not the other way around. It would be unreasonable for them to demand going anywhere you don't want to, and they know that. They can make requests but will have to back down if you refuse. Remember that and don't give them an inch. His father reminded him. My team will be shadowing you every step of the way and will step in if something happens. We'll also need you communicate with us during the meeting, so make sure to remember the signals we've set up. The ANBU captain told him. I get it already. How many times do we have to go over this? Naruto whines. They'd been repeating this over and over again all morning. They were going to drive him mad. Now are you to dash? The rumbling from his mother sent a chill down his spine. You need a lot of repetition for something to sink in, and we only have a short amount of time to get you to remember this. Kushina said with a sweet smile. Or did they not teach you what can happen when you mess something like this up? At that, memories from Hachiro's class came flooding back to the boy. The color from his face strained and his legs instinctually closed shut as he shakily blurted out, right. Signals. How did they go again? Naruto, right? An unfamiliar voice drew Naruto back to the present. When he came out of his thoughts, he was met with a face he'd been shown 100 times today. Amaya Tamura. Her hair was the same here as it was in the photo, but her outfit was completely different. She wore a dark green, skin-tight half-sleeve that stopped just above her navel and had a thin slit over the top of her cleavage that was more pronounced with the way she was leaning over to look him in the eye right now. Over her left shoulder was a grass-woven half-cape that would cover her upper arm while standing straight up. She wore black short shorts, leaving her long, flawless legs on full display, and finished up with black-heeled sandals. After taking in her outfit, he examined the face he'd initially brushed off. The smile she wore wasn't anything like the photos he'd seen. It was bright and inviting with glossy pink lips. Then he met her eyes. Those emerald orbs radiated joy and curiosity, and dazzled so brightly that he felt like he wouldn't be able to look away. And the last thing to reach his mind was the relaxing aroma of a dew-covered field in the morning. Pretty Naruto unconsciously breathed out, only realizing his mistake when Amaya cutely giggled at his remark. So I'm pretty, am I? I'd hope so, Amaya happily said as stood up straight. It'd be pretty awkward in my date, didn't think I looked good, she said as her right hand came up to nervously rub the side of her neck. Naruto struggled with his words for a moment, stumbling over himself as he tried to get out a decent response. He eventually settled with offering her a seat so they could get something to eat. Great! Amaya cheered as she took a seat opposite him. I've been so nervous that I couldn't even eat dinner last night. I'm starving, the girl happily admitted. Is this really an enemy shinobi? Naruto wondered to himself as watched her with an odd expression on his face. He's already slipping. The ANBU captain muttered to herself from a nearby roof. As long as he doesn't make any big mistakes this time around, they can further prepare him for their next encounter, but it was clear to her that he's undertrained for this kind of battle. He'll get swept up in her pace at this rate. Oh wow! These look tasty! Amaya gushed once their food was brought out to them. Yeah, I hear this place is pretty popular. No surprise if their dango taste as good as they look. Naruto happily said as he picked up a skewer to try it. Oh? Amaya let out before slipping a dumpling ball into her mouth. Quickly chewing and swallowing, she opened her mouth to continue. You've never been here before? HMHMM? Naruto murmured through closed lips as he chewed the multiple dumplings he'd shoved in. Ah, no. Naruto started after clearing his mouth. I usually go to Ichiraku's when I eat out. Naruto told her. We should go there as well. It must be wonderful if you're always going there. Amaya suggested with a gentle smile. A reason to go to Ichiraku's was always welcome, and Naruto was a second away from agreeing when Ms. Anbu's words rung through his head. Commit this route to memory and never deviate from it. I don't know, Naruto said as he scratched his cheek. I wouldn't want to eat too much. Hearing this, Amaya puffed up her cheeks and gave him a cute pout. But I really want to go now. She whines while maintaining her pout. Maybe next time, Naruto suggested with hesitantly raised arms to placate her. Immediately her face brightened up and she threw a fist in the air. It's a promise! Amaya happily cheered. Why yeah, promise. Naruto replied with a strained smile. It just felt so wrong to think of this girl as his enemy. Were they sure she was just here to take advantage of him? But wouldn't someone who wanted to trick him act like this? On the other hand, she seemed really genuine. But he could always be wrong. Poke. Gah! Naruto nearly fell out of his seat at the unexpected sensation of something touching his cheek. You okay? You looked stressed out. Amaya asked with a concerned expression as she pulled her hand back. If you're really that uncomfortable, then we can call it here for today. I'll understand. After all, we've only just met and we're already on a date. I'm so nervous I can barely hold down my lunch. Amaya told him with a strained smile and a quick chuckle tossed in at the end. She's giving you an out, kid. Just take it, and we'll try again later. Ms. Anbu's voice came through the small earpiece Naruto was wearing. No. No. That won't be necessary. Naruto waved off Amaya's concerns. Sorry, Ms. Anbu, but no matter how I think of it, I can't just start second-guessing every offer of trust. Until proven otherwise, I'm going to trust her. Naruto thought to himself. Seeing her smile normally again and giving him a quick nod made him feel like he made the right choice. Let's take our food to go. Some fresh air and sun will help calm us down, Naruto suggested as he got up to go pay for the food. Yes. That sounds nice. Amaya told him as he walked away, the corner of her lips crooking up as she watched his bag. Where to next? Amaya asked hopefully as the pair walked out of the restaurant with carry-out bags. There's a park nearby. I figured we could take a walk through there. Enjoy the sights and all that. Naruto told her as he started to lead the way. With a bright smile, Amaya responded. That sounds wonderful. So, this is where you've been? And you look even more lovely than the last time we met. A familiar voice cut over her, causing Amaya's face to freeze up mid-sentence. And I see Naruto's here too, Sasuke said as he walked up to the pair from behind. When they turned around, they saw the Uchiha holding a bouquet of purple flowers and sporting a $1 million smile. I just so happened to get a hold of these and thought of you. I recalled how you liked lavender, so I just had to deliver them right away, Sasuke said as he held the flowers out for Amaya. Just fuck off and go back home already, you two-faced harlot, the boy thought while maintaining his dazzling smile. Oh, they're lovely. Thank you so much. Amaya gushed as she took the flowers off Sasuke. Piss off with your shitty flowers. You're way too annoying to be useful, you playboy shit, Amaya thought as she maintained her gleeful expression. You two know each other? Naruto asked, giving the pair a wary look. We've met a few times. How could I not rush to meet such an angel? Amaya / Sasuke replied as their gazes turned toward the blonde. Damn Uchiha. You were supposed to be a sack of information to siphon from, but you've been hounding me for days. Read the atmosphere already, Amaya thought to herself as she struggled to not glare daggers at the raven-haired boy. If you're not going to fall for me so I can break your heart and chase you out, then at least show your true colors so we can all be done with this, Sasuke thought as he struggled not to sneer. Right, Naruto flatly said with a blank expression. This feels weird, Naruto thought as the nice atmosphere from before was washed away. I think we really should call it here for today. It'll be awkward to walk around with all of this after all, Amaya said with an apologetic smile as she shifted her arms to draw Naruto's attention to the things she was holding. This came as a surprise to Naruto, but before he could make a response she continued. Sorry, but I really did have a nice time. Even if it was short. And with a short bow she quickly took her leave. With her figure growing smaller in the distance, Naruto turned his attention to his friend with an expression that spoke volumes. What? Did I say something wrong? Sasuke replied as if offended by the look Naruto was giving him. No. It's nothing, Naruto told him with a sigh. He didn't know if he should be pissed since his friend just interrupted what clearly looked like a date to outsiders, or relieved since he personally had nothing to do with ending the date. Oh, come on! Cheer up, Sasuke said as he hooked an arm around Naruto's neck. So, your date left early, happens to me all the time. No reason to get depressed over it. He tried to console. You knew! Naruto blurted out with wide eyes as Sasuke started to lead them along the street. Hey, I saw her first, and I'll be damned if I lose to you when it comes to girls. Sasuke told him. That's not how that's supposed to work. Naruto berated him. I'll back off if you say you love her. Promise. Sasuke told him, only to receive stuttered complaints in return. Sounds like fair game to me. The boy cheered. You really are a human piece of filth. Came a voice through the earpiece Sasuke wore. But at least you're useful for this. And not a half praise from her hiding spot, the veins around her eyes fading away as she deactivated her Byakugan, and she turned off her headset. We're going to have to do better with this one. Hinata muttered to herself. He totally wants to fuck me. Amaya reported in once getting back to the apartment, giving a thumbs up accompanied by a confident grin. I think you're exaggerating. Masahiro retorted from his seat at the table. Or did you forget that we could hear everything, Ms. Popular? The large man asked as he nodded toward the pot of grass sitting next to him. It was a jutsu of Amaya's, one that utilized grass as a speaker. Since sound is just vibrating air molecules that the brain interprets certain ways, she just needs to make the blades of grass vibrate at the right frequency. The grass in that pot was linked to the grass woven into her cape, so they transfer and vibrations they receive through sound over here. It was a more secure way of transferring information than using radios. With a huff, Amaya crossed her arms. What did you expect to hear? He's just a brat, so it's not like he's going to describe all the ways he wants to ravish me. The girl retorted. You're too full of yourself. Masahiro said as if he was already bored of the topic. Why you big stupid dash? Amaya growled out as she stomped over to the man, only to be halted when Kyoshi stretched his hand out and tapped his book against her chest. You were right to back out there. Your temper is certainly off-putting. Not something to be shown during a first impression. Kyoshi commended her. What temper? Amaya spat. Ignoring her, Kyoshi continued. We didn't expect to go all the way in one go. You drew his attention, and that's all we were asking for today. We have all the time we need to pull him in, and when it's too late to backpedal. Well, he won't be able to do anything then, will he? The man said with a smirk. The sound of the sozu out in the garden emptying its contents and dropping back onto the rocks greeted Sasuke as he stepped out of the dream world and back into reality. Rolling over in his futon, he glanced at the clock on the wall. Little under 2 hours before he needed to meet up with the rest of his team. Good. Crawling out of bed, the young Uchiha stretched out his body before finishing up with a slap to both cheeks to fully wake up. As the sun was just starting to rise over the horizon, Sasuke left his room to begin his daily routine. Roughly an hour later had Sasuke finishing up his morning workout routine in the garden. He was drenched in sweat after finishing his last jumping squat, but that was fine. He'd be taking a shower before heading to the kitchen, so it's not like his body odor would affect anyone. Hard at work, I see. A voice rung out over the otherwise serene garden. Looking to the source had Sasuke, finding his brother sitting on the wooden walkway attached to the house, a towel in his hand. Itachi, when do you get back? Sasuke asked with a pleasantly surprised expression as his brother got up. Late last night. You were already asleep. Itachi told him as he draped the towel over the younger Uchiha's head. Sorry for missing your graduation. Itachi apologized. Don't worry about it. You're a busy guy. Sasuke assured him as he wiped his brow with the offered towel. We'll just have to celebrate by ourselves. I don't have anything planned for today. How about that new restaurant, the one that opened up by Amachi's? My treat. Itachi offered. Yeah. Sounds good. Sasuke told him as he placed the towel around his neck. Already looking forward to it, Sasuke said with a wide grin as he took off for the shower. By the time Sasuke entered the kitchen, the others were already seated. It was fine. Not like he was going to complain about slightly cold food. How has the search been going? Good, I hope. Fugaku asked his eldest son. I wouldn't really know. Itachi sheepishly admitted. I've been away on assignments, so I've left house hunting to Izumi. Itachi told them. She asked me to with her to a viewing tomorrow. A 2-bedroom apartment up in the northern end of the village. Sasuke's mother, Mikoto, announced. This is the first I'm hearing of this. Fugaku said with a raised eyebrow. I told you yesterday. Weren't you listening? Mikoto shot back. Sorry. I've been absent-minded as of late. Fugaku apologized. A long-standing issue has recently gotten more active, so we've had to focus more attention on it. The man explained. Moving out already? Sasuke remarked as he slid into his chair. It makes me sad as your little brother. I'll get to see you even less than usual. The youngest Uchiha added. Sasuke, don't go making your father feel guilty. Mikoto reprimanded with furrowed brows. Everyone moves out at some point. This is just Itachi's time to do so. Mikoto said, only for Itachi to hold his hand up to interject. It's fine. It's not something Sasuke will have to worry about. Itachi said, gaining a raised eyebrow from his little brother. Starting tomorrow I'll be moved from the ANBU to our regular shinobi forces. So, I'll be spending a lot more time inside the village. Itachi told him. What? Sasuke blurted out, nearly jumping out of his seat. Mikoto also seemed surprised by this announcement, though Fugaku's expression didn't even budge. Father's responsibilities as one of the Hokage's assistants has been affecting his abilities as clan head. He's even been handing off tasks as clan head to other members recently to make room for his growing workload. I was always going to succeed him as clan head, but that wasn't going to be possible if I stayed in the ANBU. Once I've moved out of the house, we'll officially transfer over the title of clan head. Itachi explained, which seemed to placate his younger brother. Clan head, huh? I guess that makes sense. Sasuke muttered mostly to himself. I'm not so old that I need to pass on the torch. I wouldn't mind staying clan head for a few more years. Give you and Izumi time to settle in without the burden of responsibility weighing you down. Fugaku offered, but after all the talks they'd had on the subject he already knew that Itachi's mind was made up. I appreciate the offer, but I'm sure it would be more troubling to continue as we are. Itachi politely declined. If that's what you want. Fugaku told him. Your father's been building up a lot of stress recently, so I'm sure this. The conversation continued, but it faded from Sasuke's thoughts as he picked at his plate. Clan head, huh? I guess Itachi was going to take over for Dad at some point. Even if it's brought up out of the blue, it was always going to happen. But, if things had been different. If Itachi couldn't take over for Father, would they even consider someone like him for the position? Sook, I'm strong. That not even a question. There was only one person in our age group that rivaled me. I am a talented shinobi, but, my personality has always been called into question. A young prodigy wasting his potential, they'd say. He's nothing but a flirt, he'd hear whispered. I told myself that I wouldn't care what happened to my reputation as long as I was able to do what I needed to do, but, Sasuke. Sakura's voice finally cut through the fog of Sasuke's thoughts. Yes, cutie? Sasuke asked, sending a cold shiver down the girl's back. Don't call me that. Sakura berated him with a raised, shaking fist and a vein bulging on her forehead. What's with you? Karen butted in with crossed arms. You've been spacing out ever since we passed our Genin test. I know we never really spoke in the academy, But you were never this ridiculous. The redhead told him. You're just over-exaggerating. I'm the same as always. Sasuke waved off their concerns. Now we're about to be assigned today's mission, so lower the volume and let me pay attention. Sasuke said, angering both of them since that's exactly why they were trying to get his attention in the first place. Team 7. The Hokage called for their squad to come up to his desk. Genin missions could be handed out by pretty much anyone ranked Chunin and higher, but the Hokage still took some time in the morning to hand out a few of them. Today looks like their chance to receive a mission from the village leader. Here you are, Dan said, handing over a sense assignment when the group got up to him. Just one, Ms. Obito was about to joke about today's light workload when he noticed the rank assigned to the mission. C rank? Obito questioned, gaining the full attention of his students. It hasn't even been a week since they passed their Genin test. Isn't it too early for this? Obito further asked. What's the big deal? If we're qualified for the mission, then it doesn't matter how long we've been shinobi. Sasuke countered. There's a reason new shinobi don't get missions ranked higher than D. We simply don't have the experience for this. Sakura reasoned. Though she was curious as to why the Hokage thought they were ready. It's just a simple delivery mission. If the recipient was located in the Land of Fire, it would be rank D. You'd have no issues completing the mission alone, so I thought this would be a good opportunity for your students to see the world outside the village. So, it's not in the Land of Fire. Obito remarked as he unrolled the scroll. Ah, so we're going to Sunagakure. Yeah, that should be fine. Obito nodded. Out of all the great villages, Sunagakure were their closest allies. Despite the rank, it was a low-risk assignment. You'll leave the village in 2 hours. Since we're asking this of fresh Genin on short notice, we'll be providing travel packs if requested. If you want to pack your own pack, then keep in mind that it takes a team 3 days on average to travel from Konoha to Suna, so pack enough supplies for 5 days and enough money to resupply for the return trip. Dan advised them before dismissing them to hand out more assignments. They all agreed to meet at the front gate when it was time to leave. When Sasuke left the tower, he was greeted by the sight of his older brother leaning on the wall surrounding the building. You'll be traveling outside the village? Itachi asked. I take it father told you. Shouldn't he be keeping mission assignments secret, or something? Sasuke responded as he walked past his brother. He mentioned it when I explained why we wouldn't be there for dinner. Wanted us to enjoy our celebration. Itachi told him as he removed himself from the wall and followed after his little brother. I still need to get ready for the mission, you know. Sasuke retorted, though he couldn't stop the smile from spreading across his lips. That won't be necessary. Father and I already gathered everything you'll need. You just have to pick it up from the house before heading out. Itachi told him. How nice of you. Sasuke said as he started to quicken his pace. Then I just need to worry about eating too much. Since I'll be taking full advantage of your generosity. Sasuke called back to his brother as he made his way toward the restaurant. With a smile, Itachi followed right behind him. An hour later had the pair sitting at a booth with a small pile of empty plates spread out before them. It was before the lunch rush, so the two weren't in any big rush to leave their seats after their meal. That last plate might have been a bad idea. Sasuke breathed out as he held a hand over his stuffed belly. Itachi didn't comment but quietly sipped his drink instead. A comfortable silence fell between them as the other patrons continued to chat among themselves. Itachi was the first to break that silence. Sasuke, can I ask you something? Itachi asked. HM? Of course. Ask away. Curious, Sasuke gave his brother the go-ahead. Why did you become strong? Itachi asked, carefully watching his little brother to see his reaction. What kind of question is that? Sasuke quickly shot back. His confusion was written all over his face. Most people become strong because they want to use that strength for something. Now that you're a shinobi, you'll only grow stronger as you complete assignments and gain experience. So, I wanted to know why you chose to become strong. Itachi explained. You're pretty strong too. What pushed you to become strong? Sasuke asked. That's not an answer. Itachi pointed out. I'll answer if you go first. Sasuke gave his ultimatum. Fair enough. It wasn't like Itachi was against telling his little brother. That's a little complicated for me, Itachi began, getting a raised eyebrow from his brother. I'm sure you learned about the last war during the academy. One of the first memories I have comes from the end of that travesty. Despite having no business there, I wandered into the aftermath of battlefield that had occurred near the village. While there I managed to stumble across a man laying among the dead who still clung on to his life. He was grateful when I rushed to his aid, but that changed when he saw our clan's symbol on my back. He'd fought against our village and knew then that I was an Uchiha. Despite giving my best to save the man, he lashed out and attempted to take my life. It was only happenstance that father was walking the battlefield looking for survivors. He rushed to my side and cut the man down before he could harm me. One that day, before I had even set foot in the academy, I had witnessed the horrors of the shinobi world. It was the first time Sasuke was hearing this, and Itachi had his full attention as he continued. I wanted to keep Konoha from going through that again, so I became strong. I wanted to become so strong that all the other villages would fear attacking the village, that they would choose to lay down their weapons and give up on being shinobi after comparing us. But that's no longer what drives me. What changed your mind? Sasuke asked. The world became more peaceful, Itachi answered him. Every year the likelihood of war breaking out drops, and I can breathe easier knowing that I'll likely never have to see another corpse-ridden warzone. The villages are still producing shinobi, but I know now that my original goal was a little too idealistic and naive to get rid of the shinobi system altogether, so I've come to terms with that. But I won't deny, I felt hollow when I realized the goal I'd put so much work into achieving had been fulfilled without me. I was happy for the world, and yet frustrated with myself. My training routine started to slip and my growth as a shinobi came to a halt. For months it felt like I was losing my place in the world, Itachi admitted. And then came the day we were supposed to take on a mission but had to turn it down when Tenma became bedridden. The squad sent out in our place was annihilated during an ambush. The details of the disaster were hidden away from public view, but I chose to break in and sneak a peek at the documents. I had to know what happened, and as I read the report my heart sank. I knew, even if I'd have fared better, that if we had taken that assignment as intended that we would have suffered the same fate. Hearing his brother's words, a cold chill clutched Sasuke's heart. To hear that Itachi was alive because of pure luck was unsettling to say the least. I was reminded of how cruel our world still was. Even if we could avoid war, we still faced death on a daily basis. It was then that I once more resolved myself to become strong. I wanted to be strong so that I could always return home with the men and women who fought by my side. That is why I'm strong, Itachi finished. I believe it's your turn now. Itachi reminded his little brother. Like hell I could go after hearing all that, Sasuke blurted out. Besides, Sasuke continued with a sigh, you already know why I need to become stronger. Don't you? I'd like to hear it from Itachi told him. You're stronger than I was at your age, but that strength isn't something you can rely on forever. It has a limit. I went through the pain of losing him once. I refuse to go through that again, even if it means sacrificing these eyes. Sasuke told his brother. And then what? Will you still be able to protect him once your power is gone? Itachi asked. I need to get ready, Sasuke said as he stood up from his seat, a hard look on his face. I'll see you when I get back, he said as he left his brother behind. When he arrived home, his father was waiting for him by the door. You'll need to leave soon if you're to make it on time. Make sure to see your mother before heading out, Fugaka said as he handed over the pack he and Itachi had put together. Right, Sasuke muttered as he grabbed the pack and went to walk past him. Sasuke, Fugaka started without turning towards his son. I understand your concern, but don't go recklessly involving yourself in Naruto's affairs. The words hit Sasuke like a brick and he froze mid-step. This is a delicate issue. One wrong move and it will all fall apart. This isn't a problem you can flirt away. Spinning around, Sasuke screamed. So you expect me to just sit back and watch these vultures peck away at him? When Fugaka said nothing, the young Uchiha stormed up to him. Well, Did you know that I was the one who pushed for your team to tack this mission? Fugaku asked, deflating Sasuke's rage, if only slightly. You see, we're dealing with a delicate issue right now. If possible, we'd like to ask for help from an ally we can trust. Of course, we need to send them the request first. So, I made sure to ask some who'd take this issue very seriously. At this, Fugaku looked down into his son's eyes. How you feel isn't wrong, but you won't be able to protect your friend as you are now, Fugaku said, and while Sasuke was annoyed with his remark, he was still listening. Your opponents aren't always going to be flighty little girls who will swoon over you at the throw of a hat. Use your time wisely and gain as much experience as possible. That way, when the moment comes, you can protect what's important to you, Fugaku advised his son. For a moment, the two of them stood in the entrance staring back at one another. Sasuke was the first to break the lock as he turned to walk into the house. If I don't say goodbye to Mom now, then I'll be late showing up, Sasuke grumbled as he walked off. Fugaku turned his attention back to the sky above as he fell into his thoughts. You're a skilled shinobi, but your immaturity is a hindrance. As your father, I take full responsibility. That day, when you were convinced your friend died because of you, I gave you your space because I thought that was what you needed. But I was wrong. I believed you would be fine when I told you that Naruto was alive and you were so happy that your tears wouldn't stop. But your heart had suffered a deep scar that wouldn't be so easily healed. I promise you, I'll make up for my shortcomings and forge you into a fine young man. It seems that no one was happy with his performance during his meeting with Kusagaku's marriage candidate. His ears still rung from the verbal beatdown his mother gave him when he got home. But he didn't think he did that badly. They were just blowing it out of proportion. Still, it seems like they were dodging Amaya's requests for a second outing so they could drill more anti-seduction training into him. 4 days have passed since then, and Naruto currently found himself on top of the Hokage's tower to get his photo taken for his shinobi ID, his new headband placed firmly on his head. He'd given Dan's proposal some thought. It wouldn't hurt to have a little extra protection, and it wasn't like he had to actually do anything romantic with them. However, there was one small detail they had to take care of. With their ages being the way they were, the marriage wasn't legally binding until Naruto came of age. This was something they could bypass by instating Naruto into the shinobi forces. Since they were expected to throw their lives away for the good of the village, and in turn the nation, shinobi were entitled to specific privileges. One such privilege is a lower marital age. I was going to become a shinobi anyway, Naruto thought to himself as the cameraman told him to hold still and got ready to snap the picture. The skies over the land of growth were bright and sunny, casting filtered light through the treetops. Located in one of the nation's vast forests was a splendidly crafted manor hidden among the beauty of nature. A gentle breeze passed by and the wind chimes performed their melody in response. It was in this serenity that one Hinata Hyuga was laying in the grass, one leg propped up on the other, her head resting on folded arms, and a scowl placed on her face. At least try to relax. Hinata-sensei, Kurenai Yuhi told her in exasperation from her chair on the patio. Kurenai was a rather beautiful woman with a well-known reputation as one of Konoha's great genjutsu specialists. She really did care for her student, but Hinata could be quite the handful. Tilting her head back, Hinata stared at her sensei with an annoyed, "I have better things to do than wait around for a response to some letter I know nothing about. Especially when they can't even give us the courtesy of letting us in their village," Hinata complained. "It can't be helped," Shino said from a short distance away. He'd been busying himself with bug hunting to pass the time when he overheard the two. Takigakure has always kept the exact location of their village hidden. That's never changed and shows no signs of changing in the near future, the Aburame clan heir explained. "So what?" Hinata, having no better response, blurted out as she rolled over so that her back would be facing Shino. "Hey!" A voice ran out around them. This put the team on alert, with both Kurenai and Hinata jumping to their feet, Shino taking his eyes from the ground to take better take in his surroundings, and from inside the manor the sound of their last team member running for the door could be heard. The sound of buzzing quickly brought their attention toward the sky. "You're the Konoha shinobi, right?" Let's be friends. Someone about Hinata and Shino's age excitedly called out as they quickly descended. This was understandably not what they were expecting, and even Kiba, who'd slowed his pace after hearing that, opened up the door with an odd expression on his face. With their sense of danger dropped to zero, the group took in the new arrival's appearance. It was admittedly hard for them to tell at a first glance if this person was a boy or girl, but the clothes made them guess they were a girl. She wore an open dark blue vest over a sleeveless white undershirt that ended a few inches under her chest. Her midriff was left on full display and led into an apron-like skirt the same shade of blue as her vest, and from the openings on the sides they could tell she wore fishnet shorts under that. The skirt ended just above her knee, and going down she only had her dark blue sandals left to mention. Her skin was a mocha tone that made it hard to tell if it was natural or was the result of heavy tanning, and went nicely with the mint color of her shoulder-length hair and expressive orange eyes. When she landed, it was easy to see that the buzzing had come from a set of transparent, scaled wings jutting from the small of her back. Rushing up to the closest person, who happened to be Hinata, the girl quickly grabbed hold of her hands. "My name's Fu, and I'll be going back to Konoha with you guys. It's going to be so much fun," Fu cheerfully told them as her insectoid wings retracted into her body. "Why?" Hinata let out with a mix of confusion and annoyance. This was in stark contrast to the excited and joyful expression Fu sported. "Fu!" A new voice entered the fray, accompanied by heavy breathing. It was a young man leading two other men as they ran toward the group. The man had ink black eyes and long, dark brown hair. He, like his two companions, wore a forehead protector engraved with Taki's waterfall symbol. He wore gray pants, a green shirt, and shinobi sandals. In addition to this, he had a gray shoulder pad on his left shoulder with a brown strap over. The guy to his right had short, brown curly hair and small black eyes. His outfit consisted of an open violet jacket, with the inside being green, a black top, and dark pants. He also had two holsters attached near each of his elbows. To his left was a man with short, spiky black hair and small black eyes. His outfit consisted of a dark violet vest, with two scrolls attached to it, a light violet turtleneck, and dark green-colored pants. They were Shibuki, the village head's son, and two of the village's best jonin, Kagon and Yoro. "Shibuki! Look, I found them!" Fu, letting go of one of Hinata's hands to wave at the man. Slowing down, the trio took a moment to catch their breaths. "I told you not to run off on your own," Shibuki breathed out with a stern look directed at the mint-haired girl. "How can I sit still when I finally get to see what's outside the village? I feel like I'm gonna burst any moment now," Fu proclaimed before turning her attention back to Hinata. "So, what do you want to do first? Cards? Backgammon? Musical chairs?" Fu excitedly asked. As Hinata watched this strange girl, her annoyance slowly dwindled. "This feels like," went through the Hyuga's head as she let out a soft sigh. "Cards, I guess. But I've never really played, so you'll have to teach me," Hinata told the girl. "Great!" Fu cheered as she threw her, and subsequently Hinata's, hands in the air. As Fu was celebrating with her new friend, her fellow Taki shinobi were apologizing to their Konoha guests about their exuberant comrade. At the same time, Team 7 were hunkered down in a rock cropping as violent winds thrashed around them. They had crossed into the land of wind with good time, but ran into some unfortunate luck yesterday when a sandstorm kicked up late in the afternoon. They were able to backtrack to this spot to lay low till it passed, but travel was unthinkable at the moment. Standing at the edge of their rocky protection, and the howling storm beyond, Obito was going over their options in his head. "If the storm lets up today, then we can still arrive on schedule by skipping out on sleep and moving throughout the night. It'll be rough on them, but they'll live. Though if it keeps up for a few days, then our rations will run out. If that happens, I can get us to Suna using Kamui, but I'd rather let them experience this trip in full if possible." While Obito was thinking of their best options, the three genin were camped out further in. "I had heard about sandstorms before, but this is just ridiculous," Sakura commented as the three of them huddled around the fire pit they'd used the night before that had nearly vanished under the sand blowing in. Sakura was grateful for the pack provided to her at the Hokage Tower. If she'd packed her own bag, she probably wouldn't have put goggles in, leaving her the only one without a pair. Even if they were out of the worst of the storm here, it wasn't perfect. There were countless holes and gaps where sand could be thrown through by a starry gust. Yeah, Karen agreed with her teammate. There's so much sand blowing around I can barely tell when the sun is up. The redhead remarked as she stared up at the roaring wind through a gap above them. Hey, why did you become shinobi? Sasuke had kept to himself during their mission, something the girls couldn't say bothered them. So, when he chose now to speak up, it was a slight surprise to the pair. Are you alright? Sakura asked after a moment. Yeah, what's with the weird question all of a sudden? You're starting to worry me. Karen followed. His eye weren't on them, and he didn't say anything for a good moment, so the pair almost thought he'd gone back to his silence when he answered. I come from a long line of accomplished shinobi. My father distinguished himself in the last war and earned a place as the Hokage's assistant. My brother graduated from the academy after only a year, and at 8 he took part in the Chunin exams without a team and passed. Becoming something other than a shinobi never even crossed my mind. So, I guess I'm just curious if you're the same. The two shared a look with one another as they pondered it. They were even more worried about the boy now. Still, they had no reason not to answer. Both of my parents are shinobi, so I guess I just fell into it too. Don't get me wrong, they never forced to become a shinobi, but I can't recall ever looking into other options. Sakura told the boy. We came from a shinobi clan, but my mother never became one. If I'd wanted, I could have easily followed in her footsteps and entered the medical field, but I didn't. Nothing else really caught my attention, so I trained to become a shinobi. Karen told him. So, one of them was like him and fell into their current profession, and the other was shown other options and still decided to walk down this path. That they would choose to lay down their weapons and give up on being shinobi. Itachi's words rang through his head. What would a world without shinobi look like? Would we even have a place in such a world, or would we find something else to do with our lives? Sasuke wondered to himself as the storm continued to rage. Sunigakure was surrounded by a large natural stone wall with entrances carved through at the 4 cardinal directions. At the east entrance, the sentries were scouring the twilight-enshrouded desert landscape for anything out of the ordinary. The sun was close to emerging from the horizon when one man called out from his post. A group of 4 at 11. They're headed straight for the village. The man's superior took hold of his own binoculars to confirm. Obito Uchiha, huh? Sending a big shot, are they? The man muttered as he lowered his binoculars. It's the envoy from Konoha. Send word so they can be welcomed properly. The man barked out his order. Ah! Finally! Sakura wheezed out as she fell onto her ass just inside the stone passage leading to Suna. What's wrong, out of breath already? Karen, who wasn't much better off, asked her pink-haired teammate as she leaned over with the hands resting on her knees to keep herself upright. Sorry about that. Their sensei sheepishly apologized. But at least you didn't have to run under the heat of the sun. Obito told them with a chuckle. It's freezing at night. How is that better? Sakura blurted out, sending a glare at the man from her spot on the sand. Just relax already. We're here, so what's the point in worrying about it now? Sasuke remarked, looking over his shoulder at the girl. Out of the 3 genin, he was the only one who wasn't out of breath. Despite that, he still sported a thick sheen of sweat over his body. Easy for you to say. I'm dying over here, Sakura complained. It just means we need to train more. Karen responded with a huff. Gah! I know. The pinkett whimpered as she flopped onto her back. She knew Karen was right, but she still wanted to complain. Stupid natural talent. She muttered under her breath. We've been expecting you. Sakura heard a voice address them, so lifted her head to look at the person. The boy was about their age and wore a reddish-brownish bodysuit with long sleeves and an upright collar, with mesh armor visible on his wrists and ankles. With this, he wore a white cloth over his right shoulder and the left side of his hips. He had a wide leather band from his left shoulder to his right hip with which he carried a large gourd and had his forehead protector wrapped around it. He had dark circles around his turquoise eyes with a head of red hair and the kanji for love on his forehead. I am Gara of the Sand, and I'll be your escort during your stay. That smells so good. Fu let out after taking a big whiff at the food cooking in the pan. The group had risen with the morning sun and relight the fire from last night to cook up some food that Fu was in the process of drooling over. I might not be that good in the kitchen, but I'll have you know I'm the king of outdoor cooking. This morning's chief, Kiba, told the girl with a confident smirk. Woo! Go Kiba! Fu let loose a cheer as she threw a fist in the air. Her cheers were quickly joined by Akamaru's barks, and Kiba silently basked in the praise as he worked the pan. You never have such a dobby smile when I compliment your cooking. Hinata commented with an annoyed look and raised eyebrow from her seat a little way away. Since when have you ever complimented my cooking? Kiba immediately shot back with his own annoyed expression. What, are you deaf? I compliment it all the time. Hinata told him. Is saying it's edible supposed to be a compliment? The boy questioned. Obviously. Shouldn't a friend be able to tell that much? Hinata asked, becoming flustered. A friend should actually give a compliment when they want to give a compliment. Kiba countered. I apologize for my friend's behavior. I'd hoped they'd be able to contain themselves in front of company, but it would appear that isn't the case. Shino, who was sitting over with the jonin and enjoying a cup of freshly brewed tea. No need to apologize. Fu seems happy regardless. Shibuki waved off the concern. Despite the argument, Fu was still smiling away. Is she important to what you're doing in Konoha? Kurenai asked as she looked over at the mint-haired girl. Glancing back at the trio of Taki shinobi, she saw them sporting awkward expressions. Oh, sorry. We haven't been told what your mission specifically is, just that we'll be escorting you back to the village. Kurenai apologized. The three men shared a look before Kagun turned to respond. The village chief wants to maintain the strong bond between our villages, so we need to encourage the younger generation to maintain that bond. Fu was selected as a possible representative from her generation. We're just here to keep her safe and offer advice as she settles into her position. Giving a smile, Kurenai nodded. I see. The woman responded as she went back to sipping her tea. It's not a lie, but... Shibuki thought as his mind drifted off to the prior day's events. What are you thinking? Sending Fu out of the village like this, you know how dangerous it is. Shibuki bellowed out to his father, village chief Hizen. He was a man of sturdy build with short hair that was brown like his son's, though his age was showing in the few wrinkles on his face and the engrossing white on his brown locks. Fu already told you, did she? Hizen nonchalantly remarked as he rested in his chair. Fu has never left the area around the village and is inexperienced, on top of being our Jinchuriki. Sending her off to another village is just begging for disaster. Shibuki tried to reason. Konoha is already aware of what she is. It won't be a pro, Hizen was saying when his son exploded. They know. Since when? Forget that, this is even worse than I imagined. Shibuki started to panic. Shibuki. Hizen breathed out. Calm down and listen. Hizen spoke as village chief instead of speaking as the young man's father. In response, Shibuki bit his lip and sat down on the empty cushion. Fu was the one who let it slip. Hizen said as he raised his hand to cut off whatever it was Shibuki was about to say. Aside from you and me, the only bond she has in this world is with Minato's kid. She told him when they were younger, and the damage had been done. It's not all bad though. To keep us from raising a fuss over it, and straining our relationship, Konoha agreed to disclosing the identities of both their Jinchuriki. I'd hardly call that even. Konoha is a large village and can more easily keep their Jinchuriki safe. Shibuki said with narrowed eyes. Fair enough, but Konoha had no need to tell us anything. Even if our relationship soured, Konoha wouldn't suffer greatly. Hizen agreed. But we did receive some particularly noteworthy information, Hizen said, pausing briefly to see how Shibuki's expression changed. He was intrigued. Have you ever heard of the Gold and Silver Brothers? Hizen asked. They were a pair of Kumogakure traders, right? What do they have to do with anything? They'd been dead for a long time. Shibuki asked with a tint of annoyance. It's said that they were swallowed by the Ninetails during Kumo's attempt to capture it and survived for 2 weeks by eating the beast's stomach lining. As a result, they took a portion of the fox's power with them when it spat them out. They had become pseudo-Jinchuriki. Something Kumo tried to replicate for years without success. Hizen explained. Konoha has succeeded. The man added. But a failed attempt always ends in death. Shibuki, with widened eyes, shouted as he rose from his seat. Why would Konoha of all places start working on pseudo-Jinchuriki? Shibuki questioned. This tidbit of information was enough to make him reevaluate his perception of Konohagakure. If they could conduct such horrific experiments, then what else have they been up to? How could his father even think of sending food to such a place? Their pseudo-Jinchuriki was an accident. Hizen told him as he motioned with his hand for Shibuki to retake his seat. The current Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is a woman named Kushina Uzumaki. I'm sure you're familiar with the name, Hizen said, getting a nod from his son. She had a rough pregnancy, nearly losing the child. Apparently, her body wasn't able to properly keep the fox's chakra from flowing into her unborn baby. The child was weak and sickly, needing constant care to keep him from dying. This boy, like the Gold and Silver brothers, possesses a portion of the fox's power. Hizen explained. Naruto Uzumaki. Shibuki breathed out. It was surprising. Not that the boy held such a secret, but that Shibuki wasn't as shocked as he should be. Naruto had always been a unique person, so the idea kind of just fit. Konoha was willing to place their full trust in us by telling us this. They are the one place in the world I can send food to without worrying, Hizen said as he leaned forward to place his hands on Shibuki's shoulders. Shibuki, I'm entrusting you with watching over her in my absence. It's my hope that she can finally make real connections with kids her own age, Hizen said with a warm smile. But Shibuki started with a worried expression. To send her off as a bride is a little much, the young man said. Oh, don't worry about that little tidbit. I didn't even tell her about that, Hizen admitted with a hearty chuckle. Back in the present, Shibuki was watching Fu as she eagerly filled her bowl with Kiba's cooking. We're supposed to give the scare off Kusa's bride candidate by presenting our own. It's hard to tell how Fu would react, so father didn't tell her. Said that the two of them were already so close that Fu would complete the mission without having all the details. But I'm just not sure. The young man thought to himself. Hey! Shibuki! Fu called out to him. You better hurry up before it's all gone. The girl happily told him as waved him over. I'm coming! Shibuki replied as he got out of his seat. Regardless of his worries, they were already here. Now he could only watch out for the girl the best he could. Naruto couldn't stop smiling. Today was beautiful with clear skies, a bright sun, happy villagers, and a new headband wrapped around his forehead. It wasn't exactly how he imagined it would happen, but he was finally a Konoha shinobi and he was going to wear his forehead protector with pride. I still remember when I first received my headband. It's an experience you'll never forget. His wife Naori expressed with a warm smile of her own as the pair walked down the street. Yeah. No way am I ever forgetting this, Naruto happily said as he turned his face to the woman and readjusted his headband. I'm a real, bona fide shinobi now. To avoid any unwanted advances, it was decided that at least one of his wives would accompany him in public. Though, even with 3 wives, it was impossible for schedules to always allow this. When this happens, it'll be up to the ANBU to watch over Naruto. Naori was the first to take this role, though. Naruto started as his hands moved to rest behind his head, and his gaze drifted off. I was kind of looking forward to being put on a team, you know, Naruto admitted. Naori's smile dwindled but didn't vanish as she gave the boy an understanding look. It can't be helped. We don't have any squads with open slots at the moment. So, I'm afraid you'll have to wait till an opening is available. The Uchiha told him. All the teams for his year had already been formed and set. The teams from the previous year were all still genin, and so they couldn't move out a chunin to make space. The year before that had already been restructured, so there weren't any openings there either, and so on and so forth. Till they could properly place him anywhere, Naruto would be assigned to Orochimaru, and helping him with his experiments and research. Letting out a sigh, Naruto let his hand fall to his sides. Just because I understand it doesn't mean I have to like it. The blonde complained with a pout. At this sight Naori had to restrain a chuckle. The Chunin exams aren't too far off. A spot should open up after that, or you may even be asked to participate with the team if they can't get all their members to sign up. Regardless, it's only temporary, so don't get too worked up over it. Naori assured the boy. I guess. Naruto muttered. That's when a question entered his mind. What about you? Pardon? Naori responded with her own question and a raised eyebrow. Your genin team, what was it like? Naruto clarified as he gave the woman a bright, expectant grin. Oh well. Naori started, looking away from the boy as she moved her right arm to rest under her chest while her left hand came up to rest on her chin. I didn't spend much time as a genin. During the first Chunin exams that came up after I graduated, I was asked to take part with a pair of genin that had failed their last attempt. I passed and chose to move on from my original team rather than wait for them to catch up. Our sensei liked to take things slow, and so we were still handling simple D-rank missions months after graduation. I heard it took my old team 3 years to make an attempt at the Chunin exams. Naori told him. Heard? Couldn't you have, asked them? Naruto questioned. I probably could have, but... Naori admitted as her face scrunched up. Naruto, how do you think genin teams are decided when a class graduates? The woman asked. They put people who work well together, I guess. Naruto made his best guess. Close enough. Naori said, giving the boy a smirk. In most cases a team is put together based on how well the team's individual skill sets work off of one another. As an example, most classes that have an Akimichi, Nara, and Yamanaka will pair them together after graduating since these 3 clans have been working together for longer than the village has existed. Their techniques work well together, and a team comprised of these 3 clans is assured some level of success. Yeah, that makes sense. Naruto agreed with a nod. But a team that works well together on a skill level doesn't necessarily work well on a personal level. Naori pointed out. My old team was like that. We worked well enough while on assignments, but despite our sensei's best efforts we were always at each other's throats. Honestly, it was a huge relief when I could finally put my time with them behind me. The woman admitted. I haven't spoken to them in years. I probably wouldn't even recognize them if we passed on the street. Naori said, only to notice the disappointed expression her blonde companion had. Putting on a smile, the Uchiha reached out to ruffle the blonde's hair. Life isn't always how you want it, but you got to make of it what you can. You'll stay here during your visit. Gaara informed his guests, as he opened the door to their temporary living space. It was a simple 2-bedroom flat with a kitchen/living area. The building they were in was one of 4 they had in the village dedicated solely to foreign shinobi, 1 near each of the 4 main entrances. Outside of a few notable cases, the buildings went mostly unused since they never had large numbers of foreign shinobi in the village. Filling in past their guide, the Konoha team started to drop off their packs and settle in. Once Sakura's shoulders were free, she immediately rotated and stretched out her shoulders as she walked over to the window. Looking outside, she once more took in the sight of the sand-colored buildings that all seemed to share a circular shape. We've been walking through the streets all morning, but I'm still in awe at how different everything is. The girl said aloud as she marveled at the sight. You'll have to get used to it. Every place has their own style and their own reasons for being that way. Obito remarked as he sat down on the couch provided to them. Sandstone is the most readily available building material in the area and helps obscure details from anyone who can fly above the village. The shape helps lower the erosion that comes with sand-filled winds, since a curve will let more grains pass over without resistance than a flat wall. Gaara explained from his spot over by the door. It makes perfect sense when you put it like that. Sakura said as she turned to look at the red-haired boy. Kusagakure's builds its buildings pretty closely to how Konoha does, but the layout is completely different, and there are a lot of fast-growing plants and fungus native to the area that they have to cut back on a regular basis. Karen tossed her tidbit of foreign building information. Oh yeah, you used to live there, didn't you? Sakura recalled as she turned to her red-haired teammate. Karen had been in the village for so long that it felt weird thinking of her as anything other than a Konoha citizen. I guess you could say that. Karen replied, giving a shrug before turning her attention to Gaara. Any idea on how long we'll have to wait for a reply? The girl asked. Though they had yet to meet the Kazekage, the first thing the group did was head to the Kazekage's tower to deliver the message. That would depend on the message, but I'm sure Lord Kazekage will respond before too long. Gaara responded. The third Kazekage sat behind his desk watching as 3 of his shinobi entered his office. He was a tall man of fair complexion with a short mess of dark blue hair and narrow yellow eyes. He wore the normal Kazekage attire minus the kage hat and flowing ankle-length white cape. The first to enter was Raz's daughter, Temari. She had teal eyes and sandy blonde hair, which was gathered into 4 consecutive pigtails. Her outfit consisted of a single light purple-colored, off-the-shoulders garment that extended to halfway down her thighs, with a scarlet sash tied around her waist. In addition to incorporating fishnet worn over her shoulders and legs, specifically on her right calf and her left thigh, she also wore her black forehead protector around her neck. The next to enter was a girl named Senator. She had brown eyes with black pupils and sandy brown hair pulled back into a tight braid that stretched from the top of her head to the area between her shoulder blades. She wore her forehead protector across her head. She wears a mesh armor bodysuit under a dark pink belly shirt bound at the front with 3 buttons, and white pants that stretch down to her mid-shin. The last was Yom, a girl considerable shorter than the other 2. She had brown hair tied in 2 short ponytails curled. She also wore her forehead protector around her forehead. She sported 2 blushes on each side of her face, and had orange eyes with black pupils and wore a pink dress over mesh armor. Thank you for coming so quickly, the third told the trio. Of course, Lord Kazekage. Temari gave a slight bow as she addressed the village leader. The man gave her a slight nod before leveling his gaze over all 3 of them. Now, before I delve into details, I want to make it clear that this assignment is completely voluntary. You 3 can refuse to take part without repercussion. The Kazekage told them, getting a few wide-eyed expressions as he watched the 3 exchange a few glances with one another. We have other qualified candidates who can take this mission in your stead. I'm offering this mission to the 3 of you first due to your relationship with the target. The man told them as he held up a picture of a familiar blonde, gaining confused and worried looks from the girls. The assignment is to act as bridal candidates for Naruto Uzumaki, and will be sent to Kanehigakure for the foreseeable future. Be bridal candidates. Yom blurted out. Her voice concern was shared by the others. Forgive me, Lord Kazekage, but this is a bit. Sin started, trying to find the right words. Sure, we've known Naruto for years, but to bring up marriage all of a sudden, she said, hoping to get her point across with that. That's why the mission is voluntary. The man restated. You said we're supposed to act as bridal candidates, so we're not actually heading off to get married? Temari tried to clarify. She carried for the blonde, that wasn't in question, but not once had she ever even considered hooking up with him. That is correct, the man replied, gaining quiet sighs of relief from the trio of girls. However, he started, renewing the tension. Should you actually form an intimate relationship with Uzumaki, we would not complain. I expect you to make some attempt to court the boy if you decide to take this mission. After hearing that, a moment of silence passed between the group. I'm sorry, but I can't accept this mission. Yom was the first to respond when the third finished, giving a deep bow as she did so. Very well, you're dismissed then, the man told her as he motioned for her to leave the room. As she stood back up and turned to leave, the Kazekage turned his attention to the remaining 2. You need not give your response now. Think it over tonight, and I'll call you back tomorrow for your answer. Now dismissed, the man told them before motioning for them to leave as well. The 2 shared an uneasy look before leaving the Kazekage's office. When they were gone, the Kazekage opened a folder laying on his desk filled with dossier of various young female shinobi in the village. He needed to narrow down who best to send out in Yom's place, as well as possible replacements for the other 2. How would you say his progress is going? Dan asked as he looked over the reports laid out on his desk. The Kusa group were getting restless, so he needed to know if he could give in to their request for another meeting or if he had to give them the runaround for a while longer. It progressing as well as it can given the circumstances. Hachiro responded with a slight look of annoyance marring his beautiful features, something Dan noticed but said nothing as he let the man continue. With the restrictions given to me, I'm only able to enlist half of my teachings at best. If you'd allow me to teach him uninhibited, then Hachiro was saying when Dan cut him off. Not happening, Dan swiftly said as he raised a hand to quiet the man. Ignoring Hachiro's narrowed eyes, the Hokage continued. You're to train Naruto in anti-seduction techniques, and only anti-seduction techniques. My lord, please, Hachiro implored. Training him this way is like teaching someone how to look right without ever explaining what left is. Certainly not impossible, but it's not ideal either. Just one night with one of our department's shinobi will be enough. It doesn't even have to be someone from the department, anyone will do. He just needs some experience to help sink in what I've been teaching him. But that's the problem, there is no one to fill that role. Dan reminded the man. I will not force him into anything he isn't comfortable with. He'll decide when he's ready for that, and no, you are not permitted to persuade him into such. Dan commanded. Fine. Hachiro's annoyance only deepened, but he cleared his expression before continuing. Naruto understands the risks involved in battles of seduction, but he's far too trusting and optimistic. His only redeeming trait is his obliviousness toward the female form, though I fear that will disappear as his training continues. Truthfully, if it wasn't a direct order from you to train this boy, I would have dropped him from the program. He has no potential in the field of seduction. Letting out a sigh, Dan placed a hand to his temple as he leaned back in his chair. So you're saying the training is more of a detriment than an improvement? The Hokage winced. He knew it would be an uphill battle, but this is beyond what he was expecting. That would be a fair assessment, yes. Hachiro replied with a nod. There's little I can do with how Naruto is currently, the man added. Dan took a moment to ponder what to do from here. They were busy setting up layers of defense around Naruto, but it was all moot if the boy himself was their weakest link in all of this. If they couldn't improve Naruto's own resistance, then they were just slapping band-aids over the problem instead of addressing it. Thank you for your report. For now, we'll cut his lessons back to once a week while we think of a solution. Den informed the man before dismissing him. The sun shone brightly over Sunagakure even in mid-afternoon. At the eastern entrance, Team 7 were getting ready to head back home, making one last look at their gear to make sure they had everything they needed. Along with them was a team from Suna that was to travel with them to Konoha. A team of 3 girls and 1 man, Temari, Sen, Yukata, and Raza. Yukato, a recent graduate like the Konoha genin, was excited to be going on a mission outside the village. She was a fair-skinned girl with long, dark hair and large, brown eyes framed by noticeable eyelashes. She wore a gray midriff vest over a short plain shirt, revealing her bare stomach. She wore arm guards and a dark skirt. Additionally, she wore black stockings and a Sunagakure forehead protector. Wow! I can't believe I'm already leaving the village. It feels like I graduated just yesterday, the excited lass happily said to her 2 female teammates. Temari and Sen, while unfamiliar with this girl, tried their best not to make the conversation awkward despite the uneasy feeling they had about their assignment. That's nice, Yukata, but... Sen replied as she gave the girl a worried look. To be so excited over a mission like this? The girl questioned. Sure, heading off to maintain good relations with Konoha isn't the flashiest mission ever, but being able to see the world outside the village will make up for it, no problem. Yukata happily told them. At that, both Temari and Sen shared a look with one thought on their mind. She was paying attention during the mission debrief, right? Once the team was set in stone, they'd all been given the details whether they'd already been told or not. So, it's not like she wasn't told specifically what they were heading off to do. You do know how we're supposed to maintain that good relationship, right? Temari tentatively asked. We're supposed to get along with this Naruto guy, right? No problem. I'm great at making friends, Yukata replied. Temari and Sen once more exchanged a look and silently decided it wasn't worth explaining. They didn't have to hook up with Naruto, so it wouldn't hurt the mission too greatly if Yukata was misunderstanding it somewhat. While this was going on, Raza had approached Team 7's Jonin instructor. I heard you were caught in a sandstorm on your way here. I hope it didn't cause too much trouble for you, Raza inquired. He was a man with auburn hair, dark eyes, and usually sported a stern look on his face. He wore a simple black jacket and pants with mesh armor underneath. It only held us up for a day, so nothing too serious, Obito told the man with an easygoing smile. He was helping his squad re-examine their packs, but this was their third time going through them since last night, so he wasn't too worried about it. The winds along the path to Konoha have been picking up as of late. It's likely that we'll encounter another sandstorm before we reach the edge of the desert, Raza informed the man, earning 2 jolts of concern from Sakura and Karen. If we can maintain our direction, then I can shield us from the sand, but I'd rather find shelter and wait it out, seeing as you've brought along genin who are unfamiliar with the desert. So, I hope you'd stoked enough food to last the days it may take to wait out a storm, Raza said, causing the 2 Konoha girls to start sweating bullets. We've checked and rechecked. Trust me, we'll be fine, Obito assured the man with a thumbs up. Meanwhile, Sakura and Karen were silently praying for good weather. No heartfelt goodbye, Sasuke joked as he slid his pack over his shoulder and stood up. Next to him stood their escort, Gaara. We might not see each other for a long time, you know, the Uchiha remarked with a grin. I doubt it'll be as long as you expect, Gaara responded, getting a curious look from the raven-haired boy. I've recently been appointed to a diplomatic role between Sunagake and Konohagakure, so I'll be making regular trips between our villages, Gaara told him. Sasuke in turn eyed the boy up for a moment before turning to head out into the dunes. That's so? Then I guess I'll be seeing you then, the boy said as he gave a brief wave over his shoulder. He only made it a few steps before Gaara spoke again. You're not how I expected you to be. When the Uchiha turned to face him again with a quirked eyebrow, he continued. I imagined you to be an unrepentant flirt. Yet I haven't seen that from you at all. Naruto's been talking about me, huh? Wish he had nicer things to say though, Sasuke responded with a dry chuckle as he racked his right hand through a portion of his hair. He clearly looks up to you, but you're always involved with some form of girl problem whenever he brings you up, Gaara told him, getting a slight twitch from the boy. Well, that's not necessarily wrong, Sasuke remarked as he recomposed himself. I do have some standards though. I'm not going to go around breaking heart while on the job, unless that is the job I'm given, of course, Sasuke told him with a cocky grin. I'm glad to hear that. It would have been troubling otherwise, Gaara honestly told him, gaining a slight chuckle from the boy. But after a nice moment of mirth, the Uchiha's smirk faded. Now with a serious expression, Sasuke leveled his gaze with Gaara's. Hey, you mind if I ask you something? Sasuke asked, gaining the boy's approval before continuing. You're pretty strong, up there with the strongest of your village. Why? Why I am strong, not how? Gaara asked, getting a nod from the boy. It wasn't something he was typically asked, so it took him a little by surprise. Still, he answered with little hesitation. I'm strong so I can protect the village. Despite everything you've been through, you'd use your strength for the village? Sasuke questioned. Closing his eyes, Gaara responded. I see that Naruto talks about me as well. Don't worry too much about it. I'm not the kind of guy to view you any different because of what you are, Sasuke assured him. It was Naruto who opened my eyes to the darkness I was starting to fall into, Gaara said as he opened his eyes. It's thanks to him that I was able to let go of the resentment I was building up towards the village, and it's because of him that I could strive to become accepted. It's been slow, but I've gained the respect of more and more of the village over the years. So, I'll use my strength to keep them safe till the whole village comes to accept me, and long after that. When Gaara was finished, Sasuke took a moment to take it in. He gave a quick nod before turning toward the desert once more. Hit me up when you visit the village. I'll return the favor and show you around the village, Sasuke told the boy as he walked off. Chapter end.
Watch daily, exclusive, uncensored lemon fanfictions featuring Naruto, Deku, Issei, Ichigo, and many other anime characters. Available only on my Patreon. Link is in the description.